Chapter 1676. Are you looking down on us, the Burning Legion? Of course, if the other party really dared to act against him, he would dare to lie on the ground today. After all, it was their first day open for business, so he wasn't going to let them have a good time. Keel carried an iron chair over his shoulder, and asked SAHDR, "Boss, that restaurant ahead seems to be the new hot pot restaurant that Boss Mag opened. However, they don't seem to have any al fresco seating. Have we brought our chairs in vain? I heard their hot pot is very spicy, and will be on fire if we eat it. We cannot make things difficult for Boss Mag," lamented SAHDR. Keel and the gang had been thinking about eating hot pot for quite some time, but it was simply too expensive to eat hot pot at Mamie restaurant. A hot pot meal was worth many rugiamos, so they couldn't bear to eat it. Last night, they heard that Boss Mag had opened a new hot pot restaurant, and it was priced much cheaper. Therefore, SAHDR brought the founding group of the Burning Legion here to try it out. Mond frustratedly scratched his head. What will we do, then? We, the Burning Legion, are going to catch fire sooner or later. We can't eat it in the restaurant. Let's check it out with the restaurant first. See if they can set up a table for us outside. If they can't, then we won't be eating it, answered SAHDR. A row of 6 lava demons were carrying their iron chairs and walking toward the hot pot restaurant in an imposing manner. They attracted quite a bit of attention. "Manager, big business." The thin man nudged Isaac. Isaac turned around and saw the 6 lava demons walking over imposingly. He gulped instinctively. This group of lava demons looked terrifying, but given his previous experience with them, these demons' appetite was at least 3 to 4 times that of a normal person. The 6 of them could consume the amount meant for 20 people. It was indeed a big business. "Watch me." Isaac straightened his clothes and put on a bright smile before he strode toward the group of lava demons. Bam! Isaac had barely stopped when he was knocked against by SAHDR and sent flying away before he could open his mouth. SAHDR halted and looked around him perplexedly. He seemed to have bumped into something. All the demons stopped and looked at SAHDR too. "Boss, over there." Keel pointed at Isaac, who was sent flying 2 meters away. SAHDR and all the demons looked down at Isaac. That was when they saw this short and fat man. "Why do you come knocking into me?" SAHDR asked Isaac, who was rubbing his butt, and was about to get up. I knocked into you." Isaac felt as if he was bumped into by a wild bull. He felt so dizzy, and the other party accused him first before he could even reason with him. This was really too much. However, he saw 5 ferocious faces looking down at him as soon as he looked up. Lines of complicated lava patterns were carved on their faces, and they were staring at him with their huge eyes as if they were going to tear him apart. His naturally born fear made his legs tremble. Although this was Chaos City, he couldn't feel the safety brought along by the laws at this moment. He felt any demon would be able to twist his head off easily. "Our boss is asking you a question," said Mond roughly. The other demons widened their eyes deliberately too. Sorry. I didn't mean to do that." Isaac quickly apologized. He was feeling extremely aggrieved. What kind of world were they living in now? "I will forget it this time. Watch where you are going in the future." SAHDR retracted his gaze, and prepared to continue walking to the hot pot restaurant. "Be careful in the future." All the demons reminded the man gently too. "Yes, yes, yes." Isaac hurriedly nodded. He was slightly taken aback by the sudden concern from the big bosses. However, when he saw SAHDR was about to walk past him and continue on to Mana Hot Pot restaurant, he clenched his teeth and decided to speak up. "I'm sorry to bump into you, my lord. As an apology, let me recommend a hot pot restaurant that is 50% cheaper than this hot pot restaurant. Furthermore, there are also buy one, get one free promotions for the dishes and free flow of alcohol. It's called Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant, and it's situated right over there. I guarantee you will be satisfied." SAHDR faltered in his steps. He looked down at Isaac, and asked, "Is that hot pot restaurant opened by Boss Mag too?" Isaac was so shocked by SAHDR's presence that he took 2 steps backward, and shook his head. "And no." SAHDR frowned and raised his voice. "Then, did I ask you about it? Why are you recommending a lousy restaurant out of the blue? Do you think I am easy to scam?" Keel and Mon surrounded Isaac as they lowered their heads, and asked him, "Do you think our boss is easy to scam?" "Why would I think that?" Isaac almost burst out into tears when he looked up at all those fierce faces. Why was this bunch of demons so unreasonable? You bumped into our boss first, and then attempted to scam us. Are you looking down on us, the Burning Legion? Keel kicked Isaac's knee. Isaac's legs went weak, and he knelt on the ground straight away. The Burning Legion's demons gave him a kick each before Mon dragged him away by his collar and tossed him to the side. All of them clapped their hands, and followed SAHDR to the hot pot restaurant. The 2 elves at the door were a little nervous and shocked at first, but they felt justice had been served when they saw Isaac get beaten up and thrown aside. They finally felt relieved after being annoyed for the entire noon. They even felt these ferocious-looking demons looked much friendlier. SAHDR stood at the hot pot restaurant's entrance, rubbed his hands together, and smiled brightly before he asked one of those elves in an extremely gentle tone, "Miss, may I ask, do you have al fresco seating for your hot pot?" That elf stared at the humble-looking SAHDR in a daze as he hid his scary aura that was present when he was beating up Isaac. She only regained her wits after a moment, and shook her head. "I'm sorry, dear customer. We only have seats in the restaurant. We don't have al fresco seating. There are still plenty of vacant seats in the restaurant now. Thank you, but we might catch fire when we eat hot pot, so we can only have it outdoors," said SAHDR with regret. He turned and said to the demons, "Seems like we are not able to eat hot pot today." That elf was touched by SAHDR and the gang. She didn't expect that they were such considerate demons. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "Please give me a moment. I can go and ask my boss." Chapter 1677 Are you trying to bully us with fewer people? Yes, but we didn't have any outdoor seating. The service staff member hesitantly nodded. Rena smiled. They helped us get rid of a nuisance, and arranging a table outdoors isn't a difficult task. According to Aiden Square's commercial properties rules and regulations, we are allowed to set up our stuff within 3 meters in front of our shop. Let's go and set up a reserve table at the door. All right. That server's eyes lit up, and she happily strode to the storeroom. A short while later, she carried a round hot pot table, and walked to the door alone. That service staff lady gently placed the round table at the right side of the door, and said to SAHDR and the gang, "Our boss said we can set up a table for you out here." "Thank you so much, miss." SAHDR chuckled gratefully. All the lava demons smiled at that server too, and then sat around the table with their own folding chairs. "You're very welcome. The service staff in charge of taking the orders will come and assist you shortly," that service staff miss said with a blush. She had heard many scary rumors about demons when she was in the Wind Forest, but after she arrived at Chaos City, she realized that the demons were not as scary as she had imagined. Instead, they were even rather adorable. Come to speak of it, this is the first time we ever sat down for a meal at Mamie Restaurant. Keel chuckled excitedly. Yes. We always felt embarrassed to sit down previously. It's indeed more convenient to bring our own chairs. Mond, too, smiled humbly. This is Mana Hot Pot Restaurant, not Mamie Restaurant, corrected Mazak seriously. Anyway, since they are both opened by Boss Mag, Mamie and Mana are similar, mumbled Kalzak. All right. Let's keep our voices low. Don't affect Boss Mag's business. SAHDR cleared his throat. They were obviously given preferential treatment. A table was specially set up for them. Give that table at the door a 50% discount on their bill later, Rena gently reminded that server who was about to go out to take their orders. All right. That service staff member nodded. She had already heard that the group of demons had helped them beat up that irritating fellow, so she already had a good impression of them. This is the menu. Please have a look. That server walked to the dinner next to the entrance, placed the menu in front of SAHDR, and smiled. The hot pot soup base is a necessary part of the order. You may choose the other items as you please. All right. Let us take a look first. SAHDR nodded and began to read the menu. Compared to Mamie Restaurant's menu, which cost hundreds or thousands of copper coins, this menu was obviously much gentler to the pocket. The most expensive Mala spicy beef only cost 45 copper coins per helping, and furthermore, it was 250 grams. As for those vegetarian dishes like sliced lotus root and potato, they all cost below 10 copper coins. SAHDR turned the menu to the rest of them with relief, and extravagantly said, "Come, order whatever you like. It's my treat today. Hehe, this pig's brain looks good. I want 10 of them." Mon smiled. Cassis pointed at the Mala spicy beef. "This beef looks great. Give me 10 of that. I always heard their duck intestines are fantastic. I will have 10 helpings of it too," said Keel without any hesitation. A hint of surprise flashed across the service staff member's face. There were actually people who ordered like this? Each person ordered 10 helpings of one dish each. Who would place orders like you guys? There's no technical content at all. SAHDR took back the menu disdainfully before smiling at the server. "We want a spicy soup base and then 10 helpings each of all the meat items on the menu." The service staff member was taken aback, but her excellent training made her regain control of her expression quickly. She collected the menu and smilingly nodded. "Sure. Please give us a moment." The bony man dragged Isaac, who was beaten to a pulp, to the side, and carefully asked, "Manager, are you still all right?" Tui, Isaac spat a tooth that was broken into half out of his crooked mouth, and miserably said with narrowed eyes, "I was almost beaten to death, I saw it. You battled all the demons alone gallantly. I was so excited when I watched you do that," the bony man said with admiration. Isaac gave that man a side glance. That man also realized he had overdone it, and quickly changed the topic. "Take a look, manager. Those guys who beat you up are already sitting by the entrance. They actually refused to go in. Perhaps this hot pot restaurant refused to serve demons." Isaac turned to look at the hot pot restaurant with much difficulty. His blood pressure shot up as soon as he saw that group of demons, and his wounds hurt even more. However, these fellows actually just sat by the entrance. He had initially thought that they were bouncers employed by the hot pot restaurant, but looking at the situation now, it didn't seem like that. They didn't even enter the hot pot restaurant, and simply sat by the entrance. They even brought along their own chairs. However, they seemed to have already placed their orders, and were waiting for their orders to be served leisurely. Isaac was worked up. "How dare they sit there leisurely and wait to eat hot pot after they beat me up? What do we do, manager?" The bony man instantly displayed a battle stance. "Help me up." Isaac was helped up with a grimace on his face. "Are you thinking about going over?" The bony man gulped. Isaac looked at all the bulky lava demons and instantly shriveled. He pointed at the restaurant's entrance. "I'm going to lie down over there." "Yes. We will just create a scene since we can't win them in a fight. We will just say they bully their customers." The bony man immediately grasped his idea. A crowd began to form in front of the hot pot restaurant again. They weren't going to let the customers in so easily. He then helped Isaac over to the hot pot restaurant. SAHDR looked up and saw Isaac walking over. He frowned. "He's coming over here again." Mond got up and glared at Isaac. "You come over here again? And you've even got yourself a helper. Are you trying to bully us with fewer people?" All the lava demons stood one by one and glared at the two of them with a fierce look. There seemed to be fire which might burst into a blaze any time dancing in their eyes. Isaac's and the bony man's steps faltered, and they paled immediately. Their legs also began to tremble uncontrollably. This group of demons were completely unreasonable. We are simply passing by. Enjoy your meals, gentlemen. Isaac gave them a smile that looked worse than a grimace, and pulled the bony man away with a limp silently. Chapter 1678 The Burning Legion will never compromise. The other party really meant serious business. All their punches and kicks were real. He had no doubt that his life would be over if he dared to go over and lie on the ground. He knew that one has to know when to hold M and when to fold M. The bony man regained his wits. As he held on to Isaac, he said in a quivering voice, "Manager, they have more people, so it's an honorable defeat for us. But what should we do now? Should we return to get help? Let's observe the situation first." Isaac shook his head, and looked at SAHDR and the gang with a side glance as he smirked. The boss is also a goon. She thought that placing these demons at the door would be foolproof in stopping us. Little did she know that she had also stopped the customers who wanted to enter their restaurant. All the customers who approach will be scared away by this table of ferocious demons at their door. Who is going to enter their restaurant and spend money? Excellent observation, manager. The bony man's eyes lit up, and he helped Isaac sit on a chair before adoringly saying to him, "Did you lose to them deliberately earlier to lower their guard?" That was naturally part of my plan." Isaac grimaced when he sat down as he pulled the wound on his buttocks. He looked at Mana Hot Pot restaurant with a cold smirk. A group of ferocious-looking lava demons sitting at the door was indeed very intimidating to those timid customers. Some of them were even thinking about giving them a wide berth. Not only would they fail to attract any customers, they would even lose many more customers by giving off an oppressing feeling. Mana Hot Pot restaurant? What's a hot pot? Is it some kind of dish? This is the first time I have heard of it. Perhaps it's a pot that gets hot by itself? Or maybe it's a kind of special grilled meat. I've seen a few restaurants that are selling hot pot on my way here. Maybe it's a trendy delicacy that has gotten popular recently. Most of the people who were walking by would stop in front of the opulently renovated Mana Hot Pot restaurant for a second look. Most of them came out for their meals at this time, but Mamie restaurant was closed today, so those who wanted to try it out were disappointed. As for hot pot, the majority of them knew nothing about it. This wasn't a term that had appeared in their dining structure before. It was something that they couldn't fathom. And because of this, very few customers walked in right away. Of course, the lava demons that were sitting at the entrance were indeed eye-catching. They looked as if they were here to make sure that no one caused any trouble. They looked very intimidating. Just as many customers were hesitating about going in or looking for another restaurant, an elven server came out with a big bronze pot. She went straight to the demon's table, and placed that big pot in the sunken hole in the center of the table. A rich and spicy aroma spread out instantly as if a bomb had exploded. Arg! What's this? What a pungent smell! Smells so good! Whoa! This aromatic spicy smell makes people feel warm. It's really very enticing in this cold winter. The aroma dispersed all over, and attracted the pedestrians' attention. Some customers who had sensitive noses couldn't help but sneeze when they were greeted by the sudden spicy scent. Many more customers' attention was attracted by the steaming soup pot. The bright red soup had red dried chili floating on the surface. The steam rose up, and the spicy aroma washed over them. It made the people's throats and bodies feel hot. The elven server put down the soup pot, and twisted something under the table a few times. The soup pot on the table began to bubble and boil shortly. There's a fire under the pot. That's why it's called a hot pot? Perhaps we have to cook as we eat. Seems like these lava demons are not bouncers, but customers who came for their meals. The hot and spicy aroma in the air and the bubbling soup pot had successfully triggered the surrounding crowd's interest. The people halted in their steps as they decided to watch how to eat this interesting new hot pot. Some people who were simply passing by were also attracted by the aroma, and stopped as well. The lava demons who were seated near the entrance were all flushed now. This spicy aroma had exceeded their expectations. Just one sniff of it had made their blood race through their veins, and it made them want to burst into flames. "Boss, why do I feel like we should have ordered a clear soup pot?" whispered Keel. SAHDR glared at Keel, and severely said, "This matter concerns the reputation of our Burning Legion. If news of the Burning Legion having clear soup while eating hot pot got out, how are we going to survive in the future?" All the demons nodded in agreement. "Maybe we can compromise with the double-flavored pot," whispered Mond. "No way. The Burning Legion will never compromise." SAHDR shook his head with conviction. 4 elven servers pushed 4 trolleys that were full of all kinds of meat items, and parked them next to the demons. One of the servers smiled. "Dear customers, these are the items that you ordered. As the quantity is huge, we placed them on 4 separate trolleys. You can reach for them whenever you are ready. This is the manual for the hot pot. There are simple instructions about how to cook each item and the time needed to cook them. You simply have to follow the manual, and you will be able to enjoy a delicious hot pot meal. Please enjoy your meal." SAHDR received that hot pot manual and smilingly nodded. "All right, thank you. Why are the dishes all raw? Are the chefs of this restaurant so lazy that they don't even cook for their customers?" "Yes. This is the first time that I see a restaurant serving its customers raw food. Is this a joke? Perhaps they want their customers to cook for themselves. If I had to cook for myself, then why would I come out for my meal?" The surrounding crowd was looking at the food items on the trolleys with a perplexed expression. This is the secret manual to eating hot pot. Whoever has it will become the true king of the hot pot. SAHDR slowly raised the manual up. All the lava demons' gaze followed the manual up too, as if they were looking at a treasure. They had been eyeing the hot pot for a long time. They were feeling increasingly agitated as they could finally fulfill their wish today. SAHDR opened the manual, and reverently said, "The first step of eating the hot pot is to mix up a dipping sauce that you like. First, pick up the small bowl next to our hands. According to our individual preferences, add in minced garlic, chopped spring onions, cilantro, sesame oil." All the lava demons picked up the small bowls, and added all kinds of spices into them according to SAHDR's instructions. Chapter 1679 Boss Mag indeed didn't lie to me, oh dear. They are using the hot pot soup base to attract customers. Those demons really came to eat the hot pot. Aren't they the live now? Isaac slapped his thigh in panic, and grimaced because of the pain. This aroma. The skinny man sniffed the air seriously and showed a mesmerized expression, but he soon righteously said, "It's not as good as our Kasha hot pot soup base." Isaac's expression twitched. With a blush, he said, "Of course." All the demons finished mixing the dipping sauces according to their own preferences. SAHDR picked up the manual again, and continued, "Tripe use the chopsticks to place it into the boiling soup pot for 1 second, and then take it out of the soup pot for 1 second. Repeat this action 8 times, and it will be ready to eat. Do not cook it for too long, or it will lose its soul." "Tripe? What's that?" All the demons' gaze began to search on the trolleys. "It's this." SAHDR picked up a plate of tripes from the top shelf of the trolley next to him. The thinly sliced dark brown tripes were soaked in water, and they were full of wrinkles. However, the quantity was rather ample. All the demons took a plate of tripe each, and placed it in front of them. "Do we really have to do it ourselves? This is the first time I have seen such eating methods. But it sounds rather interesting. The soup pot and the ingredients are all readily prepared. All we have to do is to blanch them in the pot with chopsticks. It's very simple." Can the food I cooked be eaten? I almost burnt down my house the last time I tried to cook. The surrounding crowd all looked surprised when they heard that. Some were rather interested too. I heard that the tripe is very delicious. Let me be the first to try it. Keel picked up the long chopsticks enthusiastically, and picked up a piece of tripe with it clumsily. The lava demons ate everything with their hands. Using chopsticks was very difficult for them. The tripe was placed into the boiling hot pot. The red soup bubbled, and when Keel lifted his chopsticks up again, the tripe had already disappeared. Whoa! Keel was stunned, and he quickly tried to dredge in the soup with the chopsticks. The Sichuan peppers and cut dried chili were tossing around in the red soup, and that tripe had simply disappeared. Forget it. There's no need to find a tripe that has lost its soul. Mond patted Keel's shoulders as he consoled him before he picked a piece of tripe with chopsticks himself and chuckled. I have specially practiced how to use chopsticks lately. Mond dipped his tripe in the red soup 4 times, but he lost it on the 5th dip. Mond looked at the empty chopsticks, and depressedly said, "Hot pot, is indeed not simple." Cassis and Marxa also picked up the tripes to try it out. They all lost the tripes in the hot pot in the end too. None of them got anything back. Ha! Seems like you all are not blessed to eat the tripe. SAHDR sat up properly and picked up a tripe reverently. His every action was slow and precise like a robot's as he blanched the thin tripe in the red soup. The tripe resembled a tiny boat struggling for survival in a storm, and after it was dipped 8 times, it finally escaped the sea of fire. It was then plunged into the dipping sauce for a swim before it was fed into a wide-open mouth. The crunchy tripe made crisp sounds like an exquisite piece of music when it was chewed by the teeth. People could imagine that crunchy chewiness. SAHDR had already closed his eyes. The tripe was soaked in the red oil and soup, and then coated with the dipping sauce. Its mala spiciness and freshness blossomed on the tip of the tongue, and the crunchy texture brought about the most beautiful feedback. What a mesmerizing taste! What a beautiful texture! He almost didn't know how to describe this exquisite enjoyment. That stern face revealed a blissful smile, and a warm sensation emerged on the tongue and spread to his torso and limbs. Phew! Flames emerged from the top of his head. The lava patterns on his body became red, and fiery red lava began to flow gradually in those patterns. Only his hands were still normal, but he didn't know that at all. Gulp! The sounds of gulping could be heard. There was no need for any more explanations. SAHDR's expression and actions had expressed more than any words ever could. Everyone seemed to have tasted that tripe's scrumptiousness and crunchiness too. Just that spicy aroma alone made their throats feel hot. I actually wanted to eat something after watching a demon eat it. A young girl pinched her thigh as she tried to prove that she was hoodwinked by some illusions. It hurts. She sucked a breath of cold air after making sure that she indeed wanted to eat it, and wasn't hoodwinked. Boss Mag indeed didn't lie to me. This tripe is really delicious. SAHDR opened his eyes and smiled before he picked up another piece of tripe, and blanched it in the pot again. Let's do it again. Keel and the rest began their second and third attempt. After failing a few times, Keel finally found the tripe that he lost a few rounds ago in the pot. Although the texture was a little overcooked and less tender, the tripe was much spicier after it was soaked with the red soup base. It lit him up right on the spot. Woo, woo, woo. All the lava demons were lit up one by one like human-shaped torches, and they were eating very happily. They made the extremely cold outdoor environment feel like a sauna. Even the customers watching them felt much warmer. They looked at the group of stalwart lava demons blanching all kinds of food in the red soup pot clumsily with amazed expressions. However, it was that weird and hilarious scene which made the surrounding people gulp continuously. SAHDR picked up the manual, and again read, "The superior ribeye sliced beef has very good marbling. Its shape resembles an eye, and that's why it's called that. It's thinly sliced, so you just have to cook it in the hot pot for a brief moment before taking it out immediately. The demons put all the 10 helpings of sliced beef onto the table as soon as he finished speaking. This is easier to hold on to. Keel picked up a piece of thinly sliced fresh beef, and scalded it in the boiling soup pot. The fresh red color turned white very quickly before it was coated with a layer of beautiful red. He lifted it up from the pot, rolled the steaming beef in the dipping sauce, and coated it with sesame oil and gravy before putting it into his mouth. The sliced beef had absorbed the taste of the thick broth perfectly, and that tender and delicate texture was mesmerizing. As he chewed gently, the aroma of the meat began to fill his entire mouth. It was irresistible. Keel only opened his eyes after a long time, mesmerized, and said, "Fantastic. All right. I've decided to eat here for lunch. I want to eat meat." The young maiden tugged her friend toward the door as she wiped away the saliva at the edge of her mouth. "This eating method is too cruel. It made my tears flow down from the edge of my mouth uncontrollably. Let's stop looking. We'll eat at this restaurant." A mister with long hair pulled his gay friend toward the restaurant. The customers who were attracted by the aroma couldn't help but step into the restaurant after watching Sargeras and the gang eat the hot pot. It caused a small surge of customers. Chapter 1680. Are these weird uncles burning themselves to warm up others? There had been no customers entering the restaurant previously, and then there was a small explosion of customers suddenly. Groups of customers began to walk in and sit down under the service staff's instructions, which quickly made the hall boisterous. The numbers of new customers shot over 300 shortly, and continued to increase. Mia turned to look at the entrance with surprise. Rena happened to come over to their table, so Mia asked, "What's happening out there? So many people are coming in suddenly." Rena was also astonished by the sudden increase of customers. After a moment of pondering, she hesitantly said, "Those customers who always come to buy Rigiamos at the restaurant, wanted to eat hot pot outdoors, so I set up a table for them. They should be eating right now." "Oh, I see. Those customers must have seen the Burning Legion eating the hot pot, and couldn't help coming into the restaurant to have hot pot themselves too," said Mia thoughtfully. Then, she smiled at Mag. "Boss has always made little Amy do that, and it worked every time. To the majority of the customers who don't know hot pot, this is indeed an excellent solution." Mag nodded smilingly. Rena had let the Burning Legion advertise for Mana Hot Pot restaurant unknowingly, and its effect was great. Furthermore, it was almost equal to having pre-selected the customers. The customers who entered had a distinct purpose, so their order rate was naturally high. "I should really thank them properly then." Rena chuckled. The customers' eyes lit up when they entered the restaurant and saw the hall. Bright lights illuminated the hall, and there were refreshing green decorations in the midst of the opulent furnishings. 100-odd hot pot tables were neatly set up in the 1,000 square meter hall. There were simple partitions between them, so the space was still rather open. The restaurant was very warm. A rich hot pot aroma filled the air. There were already 20-odd tables occupied by customers, and white steam rose up from the pots. The customers were having hot pot as they chatted. The ambience was relaxing as they chatted while waiting for their food to be cooked. This environment made the customers relax easily. Under the lead of the beautiful elven service staff, they could choose to sit wherever they wished. They would then receive the menu and commence ordering. What was beyond the expectations of most customers was that despite the opulent appointments and having all elven service staff, the prices were not expensive. It was even cheaper than most Aden Square's restaurants' average spending. Hence, they began to order as they wished happily. The customers that kept streaming in created a very good drive effect. Meanwhile, the Burning Legion sitting at the entrance had managed to ward off Isaac, who wanted to hijack their customers, as well as demonstrate to the other customers. After watching them for a while, most people couldn't help but step into the hot pot restaurant. "Let go of that duck intestine. I dropped it 3 rounds ago. I'm really letting it go now. No, no. Put it into my bowl. If you put it back into the pot, I might not find it even after another 3 rounds. The Burning Legion didn't notice any of that as they were completely immersed in the joy of eating hot pot. They were like 6 burning torches that brought warmth to the customers watching them. Of course, they couldn't rule out that some people did indeed come to warm up by the fire. Isaac and the bony man looked miserable as they watched from the opposite street. "What do we do now, manager?" asked the skinny man softly. They wanted to hijack the customers, but they didn't dare to approach the restaurant. The two were not the demon's match, and they didn't even dare to go over there to lie down on the ground. "Life's too hard on me," said Isaac miserably. With those few guarding the entrance, nobody from Kasha Hot Pot could do anything that day. "Didn't you tell us to go check out what they are selling this morning? Are we still going over there now?" The skinny man continued to ask. His calves trembled slightly when he looked at those flaming lava demons. "Won't we be telling them what we plan to do if we go over right now?" Isaac rolled his eyes at him. He braced himself against the back of the chair and stood up. "Help me back to the restaurant first. We'll let the boss send someone else over." "All right. Let's take it slowly." The bony man was relieved as he helped Isaac limp back toward Kasha Hot Pot restaurant slowly. Half of the hall seats were filled when Mag and the ladies were almost done. The rising steam and the customers' chatter made the hall's ambience as boisterous as the boiling soup. "Seems like I don't need to think of any solutions." Mag flicked a glance at the count 421/1000 in his mind. It was only noon now, and the evening was the time that the hot pot restaurant was the busiest. The customers all looked very satisfied. The unique joy of eating hot pot and the exquisite scrumptiousness that entered the mouth brought them a blissful and all-new dining experience. The scrumptiousness spread through the word of mouth could bring along an extremely high new customer conversion rate. Mag believed these 400-odd customers would bring more new customers to the hot pot restaurant in the near future. They would continue to increase through their excellent reputation. "Bill, please." Mag gestured to the service staff. The elven server came to them, and smilingly said, "Sir, boss said your bill will be placed on her tab. You all can leave straight away if you are done eating. You should take every business into the accounts on your opening day. We can't put the bill under the boss tag." Mag shook his head with a smile before he took out his money bag. "Come, how much is our bill?" That elven service staff looked at Mag hesitantly as her gaze swept around, trying to look for the boss. However, the boss seemed to have gone upstairs. "The total is 1,250 copper coins." "I've already calculated it," Amy said after burping. "Keep the change. The rest is the tip." Mag passed a dragon coin and 3 gold coins to that elf before he held Amy's hand and walked to the door. That service staff held onto the money as she was unsure if she should return the money to Mag or keep it. "Should we inform Rena that we are leaving?" Mia asked Mag after she picked up her clothes. "She will be very busy today, so let's not give her any more trouble," said Mag, shaking his head. "All right." Mia nodded obediently. All of them leave with Mag. Mamie restaurant's regular customers greeted Mag warmly on their way out as if he was a celebrity. As soon as Mag walked out of the door, a heat wave washed all over him and confused him. "Are these weird uncles burning themselves to warm up others?" Amy said in shock as she stared at the Burning Legion who were burning themselves up wildly. Murmured Mag. It was rather appropriate if they wanted to explain it that way too. However, he was indeed rather shocked by the way the Burning Legion ate hot pot. 6 humanoid flames were having hot pot around the big pot, and even the chairs beneath their butts were burnt bright red. It suited the name of hot pot very much. Chapter 1681. This is fricka-ing against the rules. Yes. We came to try it out on the opening day. Mag nodded with a smile before waving his hands downwards. Please continue eating and ignore us. He had to admit that the way the Burning Legion ate hot pot was far more eye-catching than he had imagined. People could see the rising flames 100 meters away. Those who had no idea would think that they were having a bonfire celebration here. Furthermore, even those pedestrians that weren't attracted by them having the hot pot were toasting themselves by their flames and chatting among themselves. It wasn't easy to find such a big furnace with such a stable temperature. The lava demons had at least brought 200 customers to Mana Hot Pot restaurant by eating their meal out there. He could see that the food items on the 4 trolleys were almost finished. If he was Rena, he would give them another trolley of food free of charge. Their effect was equivalent to a high-end demonstrating team. Amy had invited her friends to come to the house to play in the afternoon, so Mag and she bid farewell to Mia and the ladies at the restaurant's entrance. It was their rare off day, so the ladies decided to go shopping and spend their current month's salary, which they had just received. Daphne and Ignazio came together shortly after they returned to the restaurant. Jessica was sent there by her mother. After making an ice cream for each child and sending the children to play in the playroom on the 2nd floor, Mag, who was finally free, went to the study, which was also on the 2nd floor. He took out a book about the Thulhu mythos from a shelf and started reading. The previous plan to investigate the Thunderstorm Mountains at night was cancelled due to Krasu, but they should be making a trip there again soon. Those great old ones were too mysterious. He was almost trapped by a carving previously, so he didn't dare to bring Irina there to break into the sealed place right away. They had to wait for Urian and Krasu to go with them together, as the 2 great magic casters would give them more protection. Kasia saw Isaac, who was assisted through the door, and frowned. "How did you end up like this?" Isaac embarrassedly smiled. "We had a little conflict with their customers when I was promoting our hot pot restaurant. Don't worry, it's all minor wounds. Have you found out about Mana Hot Pot restaurant's details? How is their business on their opening day?" Kasia asked straight away, without any concern for Isaac's injuries. "Boss, those demons sat next to that hot pot restaurant after they beat up the manager, and we weren't allowed to get close." The bony man looked at Kasia, and carefully said, "I think those guys are bouncers employed by Mana Hot Pot restaurant." "Idiots! I asked you to find out what they are selling so that we can cut their supply chain. What are you doing by going over there to look for a fight? Are your brains fried?" roared Kasia. The skinny man's trembled, and he almost knelt down right on the spot. Isaac, too, was frightened, and said, "Don't be angry, boss. I simply wanted to poach their customers for our restaurant initially to increase our customers' source. Secondly, I want them to have no business on their opening day. I didn't expect to bump into those thugs, get straight to the point." "How's their business?" Kasia asked coldly. "Those thugs have instead attracted some customers for them when they were eating by the restaurant's door. Currently, their business is still fine. However, that restaurant is indeed related to Mamie Restaurant," whispered Isaac softly. "They are indeed related to Mamie Restaurant?" Kasia's expression became even more sullen. "Yes." Isaac nodded his head carefully. "All right. All of you get out. I am going over there to see for myself." Kasia grabbed his mink coat, and walked to the door with his secretary. 2 orcs in workout clothes followed closely after him. Kasia looked out of his horse-drawn carriage shortly after it drove out. He saw that busy scene a short distance away. Hundreds of people were surrounding a bonfire. It was that newly opened Mana Hot Pot restaurant. What are they doing? Why are they having a bonfire party in the middle of the day? Why are there so many people watching them? Kasia murmured to himself with a frown. "Stop! I am walking over," said Kasia when the carriage was about 100 meters away. The vehicle stopped, and he walked toward Mana Hot Pot restaurant with his secretary, who had big wavy blonde hair. Over 100 people had gathered at the Hot Pot restaurant's entrance, and there were still passers-by converging at the entrance non-stop. There were also many customers going into the Hot Pot restaurant. Their business was already considered very good for a restaurant on its first day. One had to know that Kasia Hot Pot didn't even have so many customers after opening for 1 month. I didn't expect their business would be so good on their first day. Perhaps they also have some big promotions going on. Kasha furrowed his brows tightly. This wasn't good news to his hot pot restaurant. A spicy aroma got more and more distinct as he got closer to the hot pot restaurant's entrance. It was an aroma that was rather similar to Mamie restaurant's hot pots. Kasha also got the idea of opening hot pot restaurants from Mamie restaurant. He had the hot pot once when he was invited to a friend's dinner party, and was amazed by that exquisite taste. He felt something big could be done right on the spot. However, Mamie restaurant's hot pot was priced so high that ordinary people couldn't afford it, and he had the means to get all sorts of meat products at a low price. Therefore, he bought a big shop front instantly. He also found a few old chefs, and made them go eat hot pot at Mamie restaurant every day so they could study that hot pot soup base. Finally, they came up with a soup base that 50% resembled Mamie restaurant's soup base, and they fixed the price at the average spending of 100 copper coins per person. Just as he expected, after getting over the initial promotion period, his hot pot restaurant quickly welcomed the explosion period. Duck intestines and tripes were worthless at the markets, so they brought him an income of hundreds of thousands daily. Right as he was starting to look for new shops to open another 3 new hot pot restaurants in Chaos City, he discovered a new hot pot restaurant had opened here quietly. Mamie restaurant wasn't listed as his competitor, as they served 2 completely different clienteles. Furthermore, Mamie restaurant wasn't big, and could only accommodate a few hundred customers every day. However, this gigantic hot pot restaurant was different. As long as their boss was of sound mind, they wouldn't go and face off Mamie restaurant. Hence, their direct competitor would be his Kasha hot pot restaurant. He had previously heard that Bowen and his son went to prison because of this shop front, but he didn't manage to find out whose hands this shop front ended up in. He hadn't expected that it would be related to Mamie restaurant. The hot pot aroma in the air was indeed 80% to 90% similar to Mamie restaurant, and was much better than in Kasha hot pot restaurant. Its aroma in the air was just like olive. After pushing his way through the crowd, he finally saw what the crowd was looking at. It wasn't a bonfire. It was a group of demons eating hot pot. They had successfully demonstrated what a hot pot truly was. They made this cold winter feel like the hot summer. This is fricking against the rules. And after watching here for a while, most of them couldn't resist the temptation of the aroma, and wanted to go into the hot pot restaurant to try it out for themselves. "Boss, are they actors?" the secretary whispered next to Kasha's ear. "Regardless if they are actors or not, it proves that this boss is extraordinary," said Kasha gravely. He retracted his gaze from the demons, and walked toward the entrance. "Welcome. May I know how many of you?" A tall and slim elf smilingly walked over to welcome them. Kasha sized up that elven server before nodding with a smile. "2 of us. This way, please." The elf smilingly led Kasha in. They are actually using elves as service staff? Elves who look like that have a monthly salary that is above 15,000 copper coins. Their cost is 5 times that of the normal human service staff. Kasha followed after that elf with a frown. There were indeed some restaurants that used elves or beautiful demons as hostesses to increase the number of customers entering the restaurants. After walking through the door, Kasha's steps faltered as he looked at the majestic hall with shock. Hundreds of hot pot tables were placed in the 1,000-odd square meters hall. Its size was at least double of Kasha's hall, and approximately half of the seats were occupied now. The bubbling hot pots that gave out spicy aromas made the hall's ambience very boisterous. What shocked him even more was that all the service staff in this hot pot restaurant were elves. Beautiful young elves were all over the hall, providing service to the customers with a smile. There were about 30 elves scattered over the hall on the first floor. According to the market rate, they would need to pay at least 400,000 to 500,000 copper coins monthly to these elves as salary, and that was excluding the chef's salary. Meanwhile, the salary of all the chefs, service staff, and management staff in Kasha Hot Pot restaurant was only 250,000 copper coins. Perhaps the boss of Mamie Restaurant wanted to expand the scale of Mamie Restaurant's hot pot section? Is this restaurant using Mamie Restaurant as a benchmark? Kasha had a befuddled look. Only Mamie Restaurant on Aden Square could match up to such configurations. Sir! The elf leading the way stopped, and turned around with a smile to ask him, which table would you like to have your meal at? I like bustle, so find me a space in the center, replied Kasha smilingly. Sure, this way please. The elf nodded and led them to a table that was close to the center. Please wait for a moment. Someone will come to take your order very soon. The elf server left with a smile. The secretary looked around her with astonishment, and then said, Boss, this hot pot restaurant is huge. They still have a second floor. Kasha threw a glance at the spiral staircase on his left. This hot pot restaurant had set up its main kitchen on the second floor, which was out of the norm. Furthermore, they even had private rooms set up on the second floor to accommodate the customers' varying needs. Their business is so good. Will it affect our restaurant? The secretary worriedly said while looking up at Kasha with her bright watery eyes. We'll find out after we read the menu. Kasha's gaze was appraising the restaurant all over. The entire hall looked very open when he looked in from the entrance. Although it had some green plants as decoration, they didn't affect the spaciousness of the area at all. However, he only discovered after sitting down that even though the tables were placed rather closely, they all had some green plants or bamboo curtains as screens in between. This prevented the awkwardness of the customers from different tables looking at one another while they were eating. Kasha pondered deeply. The dish's taste would dictate if the customers would come in and spend, while the dining experience would dictate if the customers would return again. It's indeed a restaurant opened by the boss of Mamie Restaurant. They've even considered all the details, Kasha murmured inwardly with a heavy heart. An elf came over with a menu, smiling, and said, Hello, excuse me. This is the menu. Please see what you want to order. Kasha received the menu. He took a deep breath before flipping open the menu. Looking at the vivid pictures and prices on the menu, Kasha's hands trembled slightly. Tiny beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. The secretary leaned forward slightly. She, too, covered her mouth in shock when she saw the prices on the menu. The prices of all items on the menu were very close to the prices of Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. The prices of the vegetarian items were even lower than those of Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. The elf was a little stunned by their reaction, but she didn't show it. She simply stood at the side quietly. A set of the double flavor hot pot, and then we would like to have the duck intestine, tripe, mala spicy beef, and these. Kasha placed his order in a slightly hoarse voice. Sure, please give us a minute. The elf took the menu back and left with a smile. The secretary miserably asked Kasha, Boss, what will we do now? Their prices are almost the same as ours. Shut up, said Kasha gravely. His right hand's knuckles were knocking on the table gently, and he clenched his left hand subconsciously. If he had to say which competitor he hated to face off with, it would be Mag for sure. He had to admit that Mag was a genius chef who had created such delicious and unique food like hot pot. Meanwhile, Kasha was simply a bad copycat. He had never wanted to surpass Mag, and had never even wanted to catch up with him. He only wanted to earn some money at a different niche from Mamie Restaurant, one where they had no chance of ever interacting with each other. However, he had never expected that Mag would go into the low-end hot pot market and make such an elaborate entrance. Their similar pricing meant that they would be fighting over the same pool of customers. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant and Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant would have a very intense competition. Kasha had indeed panicked. After a while, the double-flavored pot and all the ingredients that Kasha had ordered were served. The double-flavored pot was served in a pot style. The bone broth was milky white, while the red soup base was fiery red. The rich aroma had already washed over them together with the heat. Just a sniff of it had chased away the chill. Kasha pursed his lips in silence as he stared at the soup in front of him. He had already lost with just the soup alone. Then, his gaze moved on to the ingredients on the table. The duck intestine was sliced open in the center, thoroughly cleaned, and soaked in clear water. The tripe was neatly sliced into pieces of equal size, and there were also no sediments on its black membrane. All the ingredients were elegantly plated like in Mamie restaurant. After a moment of silence, Kasha picked up a piece of duck intestine with his chopsticks, and blanched it in the pot 8 times before feeding it into his mouth. The spicy broth exploded in his mouth, and the crunchy texture of the duck intestine was released perfectly. The spicy, aromatic red broth had removed the stench of the duck intestine, and gave it a beautiful taste. The crunchy sounds made it feel like the tongue could drop from too much chewing. "Let's eat," Kasha said to the jittery secretary before continuing to add all kinds of ingredients into the hot pot. Answered the secretary carefully. She chewed gingerly and sneakily peeped at Kasha every now and then. The hot pot meal concluded in silence. Kasha settled the bill and left with the secretary. "Boss, I have already instructed the markets side. Our people will be standing guard at the entrance tonight, and we will be soon certain who their suppliers are." "We can cut off their ingredients," Kasha interrupted the secretary. "All right. Let's cancel all these plans." "But, this technique might work if our opponent was someone else." Kasha smiled self-deprecatingly. "But our opponent is the boss of Mamie restaurant. He's the city lord's favorite right now. I don't want to be the second Bennett by pulling such stances in front of him." The secretary went white. After a moment of hesitation, she then asked, "What will our hot pot restaurant do now?" "Cancel all the promotions tomorrow and close the restaurant for 1 week. Let the people in charge of cutting and plating in the kitchen go and eat at Mana Hot Pot restaurant for twice a day. I will pay for all the expenses. Make them find out how to clean, cut, and plate the hot pot's ingredients within 1 week. Those who fail to make the grade 1 week later will be fired." Kasha paused, and then said to the secretary, "And, you will be in charge of setting the new hot pot's prices. On the basis of the current prices, lower the prices by 30%. Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant is going to be a hot pot restaurant whose average spending is 60 copper coins per person. We can always change if we are not their match." Chapter 1682, We can always change if we are not their match. Kasha was stunned by the 6 demons eating furiously at the entrance. He was even more shocked that they could make eating hot pot look like an arts performance even though they looked so rugged. A rousing fire in the winter was deadly seductive to the passers-by. And after watching here for a while, most of them couldn't resist the temptation of the aroma, and wanted to go into the hot pot restaurant to try it out for themselves. "Boss, are they actors?" the secretary whispered next to Kasha's ear. "Regardless if they are actors or not, it proves that this boss is extraordinary," said Kasha gravely. He retracted his gaze from the demons, and walked toward the entrance. "Welcome. May I know how many of you?" A tall and slim elf smilingly walked over to welcome them. Kasha sized up that elven server before nodding with a smile. "2 of us. This way, please." The elf smilingly led Kasha in. They are actually using elves as service staff? Elves who look like that have a monthly salary that is above 15,000 copper coins. Their cost is 5 times that of the normal human service staff. Kasha followed after that elf with a frown. There were indeed some restaurants that used elves or beautiful demons as hostesses to increase the number of customers entering the restaurants. After walking through the door, Kasha's steps faltered as he looked at the majestic hall with shock. Hundreds of hot pot tables were placed in the 1,000-odd square meters hall. Its size was at least double of Kasha's hall, and approximately half of the seats were occupied now. The bubbling hot pots that gave out spicy aromas made the hall's ambience very boisterous. What shocked him even more was that all the service staff in this hot pot restaurant were elves. Beautiful young elves were all over the hall, providing service to the customers with a smile. There were about 30 elves scattered over the hall on the first floor. According to the market rate, they would need to pay at least 400,000 to 500,000 copper coins monthly to these elves as salary, and that was excluding the chef's salary. Meanwhile, the salary of all the chefs, service staff, and management staff in Kasha Hot Pot restaurant was only 250,000 copper coins. Perhaps the boss of Mamie Restaurant wanted to expand the scale of Mamie Restaurant's hot pot section? Is this restaurant using Mamie Restaurant as a benchmark? Kasha had a befuddled look. Only Mamie Restaurant on Aden Square could match up to such configurations. Sir! The elf leading the way stopped, and turned around with a smile to ask him, which table would you like to have your meal at? I like bustle, so find me a space in the center, replied Kasha smilingly. Sure, this way please. The elf nodded and led them to a table that was close to the center. Please wait for a moment. Someone will come to take your order very soon. The elf server left with a smile. The secretary looked around her with astonishment, and then said, Boss, this hot pot restaurant is huge. They still have a second floor. Kasha threw a glance at the spiral staircase on his left. This hot pot restaurant had set up its main kitchen on the second floor, which was out of the norm. Furthermore, they even had private rooms set up on the second floor to accommodate the customers' varying needs. Their business is so good. Will it affect our restaurant? The secretary worriedly said while looking up at Kasha with her bright watery eyes. We'll find out after we read the menu. Kasha's gaze was appraising the restaurant all over. The entire hall looked very open when he looked in from the entrance. Although it had some green plants as decoration, they didn't affect the spaciousness of the area at all. However, he only discovered after sitting down that even though the tables were placed rather closely, they all had some green plants or bamboo curtains as screens in between. This prevented the awkwardness of the customers from different tables looking at one another while they were eating. Kasha pondered deeply. The dish's taste would dictate if the customers would come in and spend, while the dining experience would dictate if the customers would return again. It's indeed a restaurant opened by the boss of Mamie Restaurant. They've even considered all the details, Kasha murmured inwardly with a heavy heart. An elf came over with a menu, smiling, and said, Hello, excuse me. This is the menu. Please see what you want to order. Kasha received the menu. He took a deep breath before flipping open the menu. Looking at the vivid pictures and prices on the menu, Kasha's hands trembled slightly. Tiny beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. The secretary leaned forward slightly. She, too, covered her mouth in shock when she saw the prices on the menu. The prices of all items on the menu were very close to the prices of Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. The prices of the vegetarian items were even lower than those of Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. The elf was a little stunned by their reaction, but she didn't show it. She simply stood at the side quietly. A set of the double flavor hot pot, and then we would like to have the duck intestine, tripe, mala spicy beef, and these. Kasha placed his order in a slightly hoarse voice. Sure, please give us a minute. The elf took the menu back and left with a smile. The secretary miserably asked Kasha, Boss, what will we do now? Their prices are almost the same as ours. Shut up, said Kasha gravely. His right hand's knuckles were knocking on the table gently, and he clenched his left hand subconsciously. If he had to say which competitor he hated to face off with, it would be Mag for sure. He had to admit that Mag was a genius chef who had created such delicious and unique food like hot pot. Meanwhile, Kasha was simply a bad copycat. He had never wanted to surpass Mag, and had never even wanted to catch up with him. He only wanted to earn some money at a different niche from Mamie Restaurant, one where they had no chance of ever interacting with each other. However, he had never expected that Mag would go into the low-end hot pot market and make such an elaborate entrance. Their similar pricing meant that they would be fighting over the same pool of customers. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant and Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant would have a very intense competition. Kasia had indeed panicked. After a while, the double-flavored pot and all the ingredients that Kasia had ordered were served. The double-flavored pot was served in a pot style. The bone broth was milky white, while the red soup base was fiery red. The rich aroma had already washed over them together with the heat. Just a sniff of it had chased away the chill. Kasia pursed his lips in silence as he stared at the soup in front of him. He had already lost with just the soup alone. Then, his gaze moved on to the ingredients on the table. The duck intestine was sliced open in the center, thoroughly cleaned, and soaked in clear water. The tripe was neatly sliced into pieces of equal size, and there were also no sediments on its black membrane. All the ingredients were elegantly plated like in Mamie restaurant. After a moment of silence, Kasia picked up a piece of duck intestine with his chopsticks, and blanched it in the pot 8 times before feeding it into his mouth. The spicy broth exploded in his mouth, and the crunchy texture of the duck intestine was released perfectly. The spicy, aromatic red broth had removed the stench of the duck intestine, and gave it a beautiful taste. The crunchy sounds made it feel like the tongue could drop from too much chewing. "Let's eat," Kasia said to the jittery secretary before continuing to add all kinds of ingredients into the hot pot. Answered the secretary carefully. She chewed gingerly and sneakily peeped at Kasia every now and then. The hot pot meal concluded in silence. Kasia settled the bill and left with the secretary. "Boss, I have already instructed the markets side. Our people will be standing guard at the entrance tonight, and we will be soon certain who their suppliers are." "We can cut off their ingredients," Kasia interrupted the secretary. "All right. Let's cancel all these plans." "But, this technique might work if our opponent was someone else." Kasia smiled self-deprecatingly. "But our opponent is the boss of Mamie restaurant. He's the city lord's favorite right now. I don't want to be the second Bennett by pulling such stances in front of him." The secretary went white. After a moment of hesitation, she then asked, "What will our hot pot restaurant do now?" "Cancel all the promotions tomorrow and close the restaurant for 1 week. Let the people in charge of cutting and plating in the kitchen go and eat at Mana Hot Pot restaurant for twice a day. I will pay for all the expenses. Make them find out how to clean, cut, and plate the hot pot's ingredients within 1 week. Those who fail to make the grade 1 week later will be fired." Kasia paused, and then said to the secretary, "And, you will be in charge of setting the new hot pot's prices. On the basis of the current prices, lower the prices by 30%. Kasia Hot Pot Restaurant is going to be a hot pot restaurant whose average spending is 60 copper coins per person. We can always change if we are not their match." After Mag tucked Amy into bed, the system's voice appeared in his mind. "A mission that is completed without having to do anything." Mag curled his lips slightly, and sarcastically said, "System, please give me such missions in the future. I'm really bored if there are no mission for me to do." Given that the host has passed the earliest stages of culinary skills training, this system's mission vault will be upgraded to intermediate difficulty automatically. "Please look forward to it," said the system. "Don't. Bro, I'm just joking." Mag panicked instantly. He had never expected that the missions had different levels of difficulties and those he had accomplished before were the easy ones. Then, what were the difficult ones? "Is little Amy asleep?" Irina appeared in the room. After taking a look at Amy, who was already sleeping soundly with Ugly Duckling in her arms, she turned to Mag. "Then, we should set off now. Are we going to the Thunderstorm Mountains tonight?" Mag stared at Irina in bewilderment. "Yes. Today, Krasu and I went to the east to eradicate a village that believed in the devil. According to their leader, many of their companions are converging in the Thunderstorm Mountains now. However, as his ranking is too low, he didn't know why." Irina nodded. "You annihilated the whole village?" asked Mag. Irina shook her head. "No, I informed Roland, and the Grey Temple arrested all of them. They were locked up individually and interrogated. Hold on for a minute. Let me go and change." Mag nodded and didn't ask any more questions. He went back to his room to change, and then put on that face-altering mask. Let's go. They're already waiting for us beyond the city. Irina held onto Mag's arm gently. A faint golden beam lit up underneath their feet, and they disappeared from the room. On a mountaintop beyond the city, Krasu chuckled at Mag and Irina, who were sitting on the griffin's back. Whoa, you two are so loving that we cannot make ourselves hop on. Ozzy is a giant magic beast, and moreover the fastest one. Irina smiled. Are you two sure that you don't want to hop on? Of course we are getting on. It's not often that we get a chance like this. Krasu hopped onto the griffin's back without any hesitation. Urian hopped into the griffin too. Ozzy, let's go to the Thunderstorm Mountains, Mag instructed the mount before greeting Krasu and Urian. He could see these two almost every day, but it still felt different when he was talking to them using another identity in a mask. He had to sound and act like another person. Hee, Alex. The two of us haven't sparred for 3 to 4 years. Should we have a sparring match? Krasu chuckled at Mag 3 against 1. Irina and Ozzy turned to look at Krasu at the same time. Krasu froze before he resignedly said, "You guys win." He really had no hope of winning if it was 3 against 1. Your body doesn't seem to be fully recovered yet. Urian looked at Mag with narrowed eyes. Mag felt his heart drop. Urian was indeed a 10th tier great magic caster. He could actually see that his power hadn't fully recovered yet. One had to know that the pretense which Mag put on and the aura he emitted was way above the usual 9th tier aura. After reining it in slightly, it shouldn't be easily suspected by others. It's just a tiny problem, Mag calmly said without denying anything. You killed Benson, so it proves that the problem isn't big. Urian nodded without pushing further. Mag raised his eyebrows slightly. Amy's master indeed had some character. However, it was also great that he didn't pursue the matter, as it saved him the explanation. Oh, yes. Alex never needs to explain to anyone. Mag's eyes brightened, and he instantly stopped making up reasons in his mind. We're going to enter the cave to investigate the situation underground today. Krasu stopped smiling, and put on a severe expression. Many anomalies happened at the Thunderstorm Mountains recently. Many unidentified people began to gather there. I'm afraid that has something to do with the seal being broken. We have to cut off the source, or else it might bring on even bigger troubles. How to reseal that thing is a big problem. I've used ice to seal that gap previously. Currently, it doesn't seem like it's effective, said Urian in a hoarse voice. Why do we have to reseal it? Can't we kill it straight away? Irina asked perplexedly. Judging from the evil power that it released, we might not have the power to do that. Krasu shook his head. If killing it had been a simple thing to do, the people in the past wouldn't have had to try so hard to seal it. Mag suggested, Irina could try with her holy light technique. Physical methods and usual magic might not be able to cause any actual harm to it. We'll decide what to do after we see it. It could really be a formidable fellow. Krasu smiled again. I have not met such a proper opponent for a very long time. The griffin soon reached the vicinity of the Thunderstorm Mountains. Mag made Ozzy reduce its speed and altitude and fly close to the mountain range. The Thunderstorm Mountains got their name from frequent thunderstorms. Winter was the thunderstorm's calm period, but they could still see lightning among the mountain range and caves. Some even struck rocks and trunks, setting off glaring lights and loud sounds. However, they could see 10-odd campfires in this mountain range which should have been deserted. Apart from the dragon race, all the races are present. There are about 500 of them, Urian said as he looked down. There are indeed many of them. Seems like they have some ways to communicate with that fellow who is sealed, Krasu said with a frown. They are just a bunch of weaklings. We'll round them up and beat them up, and we will know everything, Irina said nonchalantly. The number of people was meaningless to them. That's true. Then, let's split up for action. Each of us will handle 4. Krasua dropped down straight away with his magic caster's staff. Left those 4 to the west to me. A blue light flicked under Urian's feet, and he disappeared too. I'll leave that one down there to you. Leave the other 7 to me. Irina pointed at that biggest bonfire down below before she transformed into a beam of golden light, and flew toward the other bonfire. Ozzy, wait for me over here. I'll go, steal some oranges for you. Mag also jumped down directly with his sword. After free-falling from hundreds of meters up in the sky, the long sword almost sliced a tree into half before Mag landed lightly on the ground. Let me see what these fellows are gathering here for. Mag kept his sword and approached the bright bonfire 200 meters away. Weird chanting began to get clearer and clearer, sounding like the devil's growling. The atmosphere was very eerie. Ding! New mission, some powerful unknown organism is detected close to the host. Could the host please obtain 500 grams of flesh from that organism within 24 hours for this system as an ingredient research sample? Right at this moment, the system's voice appeared in Mag's head. Chapter 1684. Can I cut a little bit of that fellow's flesh to take it back later? The knowledge left behind by our forebears has told us that any organism has the potential to become our food. After cutting through the complex fog on the surface, the essence is the same. Whether the great old ones can be eaten isn't the question. The question is whether they will taste better steamed or braised, answered the system calmly. Mag opened his mouth, but he couldn't find words to rebut it. The system continued, therefore, the host only needs to obtain 500 grams of flesh and submit it to this system as the object of study. Wait a section. Mag frowned as he realized something wasn't very right. He rolled his eyes. That is a great old one, an immortal existence that was sealed ages ago and an existence that has terrifying power. You're now asking me to go cut a piece of it so you can do a biopsy and study it? This mission is already beyond my scope, right? I'm just a chef. What's wrong with complaining about those people whose dishes are poorly done on Weibo? Neither did they curse me to go catch a great old one for research, right? The system paused for a while before saying, after the appearance of the great old ones, the food chain in this world has indeed surpassed the upper limit of the penalty set at the beginning. Hence, it's the so-called beyond your scope. Then, I will reject this mission, Mag replied without any hesitation. If the great old one could be cut up so easily, the people then wouldn't have to try so hard to seal it up here. Wouldn't it be better to cut it up, split among all of them, and then bring it for braising otherwise? He could deduce from the system's words that the one who threw him into this world in the beginning had never studied this world seriously before. This was already beyond the system's auxiliary range. He didn't believe that a cuisine system with no morals could handle the great old ones. Not everyone could excel at everything. Mission reward: the host will receive an all-around inspection report on the new species, including racial analysis, various endurance studies, vulnerability analysis. The system's extremely mesmerizing voice sounded again. Mag frowned and hesitated. Inspection report. He had to admit that this mission reward was extremely enticing. The fear of the great old ones originated from the fear of the unknown. Otherwise, what was there to be afraid of a tentacle monster? There were plenty of perverts who loved it. If the system could provide a complete inspection report and tear away the mysterious outerwear of the great old ones, perhaps it could really provide them with a solution to handle the great old ones. He didn't want to pin his hopes on those gods who might not even exist. It felt best to grasp destiny in his own hands. What if the mission fails? If the host fails the mission, I don't think the host needs to do any penalty then. Mag chose to undertake the mission. Of course, it didn't matter if he chose to undertake it or not. The mission was already there, and the countdown had already started. After being messed up by the system, that weird and scary atmosphere of the bonfire gathering was gone. The moment Mag thought that the subject of the crazy belief which these fellows held was going to be the system's next rearing object, all the scary became boring. However, since Mag had agreed to undertake this celebration, he had to go take a look. He went through the forest and knocked out a demon who seemed to be on the lookout with a punch before standing on a tree branch that was about 100 meters away from the bonfire. There was a huge bonfire on the flat ground nearby. Over 100 demons, humans, and orcs were dancing a weird twisted dance around the bonfire. The flickering fire shone on their crazy grinning faces, and reflected an eerie light from their pupils. Right in front of the bonfire was a 2-meter-tall thin man with loose flowing hair. He was waving a black scepter, and the chanting that sounded like the devil's groaning came from his mouth. They seemed to be conducting a certain ritual, and that lanky man should be the priest. Only he was still wearing a tattered black robe. A rim of animal carcasses surrounded the bonfire, and their heads were facing the bonfire in unison. Mag looked at this weird and promiscuous scene with a frown. Those who were not mentally strong would most likely faint on the spot if they saw this. However, his gaze was soon attracted by 3 children who were tied up in front of that lanky priest. Those were 3 children under the age of 10, 2 girls and 1 boy. They were tied up with a rope, with their backs facing one another. They were screaming with terrified expressions, which sounded even scarier amidst the chanting and mumbling. The chanting stopped suddenly. That priest walked to the 3 children, and raised his scepter high above his head as he prepared to smash it onto them. All those present gathered toward those 3 children with a grin. Red light was flickering in their eyes as if they were looking at food on the table. "We will be the blood sacrifice that helps release the god," yelled the priest loudly. "Kill!" Those fellows suddenly took out daggers and sharp branches from nowhere, and stabbed them into their hearts. Meanwhile, that priest was also smashing his scepter at those 3 children with a crazy look. "This bunch of a-holes!" Mag went white slightly before he threw his long sword out. It flew toward that priest like a long rainbow. About 3 minutes later, Irina appeared. She looked at the tragic scene, and doubtfully asked, "Why are they all dead?" "To prevent them from committing suicide, I killed them." Mag shrugged before pointing at the 3 children who were passed out on the ground, and said, "Can you erase their memories?" "Sure." Irina approached those 3 children and chanted silently. She waved her hand, and 3 flashes of golden light went in between their eyebrows. After a while, Krasu and Urian returned too. Creatures who are bewitched by the devil are indeed equally nauseating. Krasu lifted his hand, and burned all those bodies into ashes. They should have been conducting some sacrificial ritual. "I heard they said they wanted to help free the god," said Mag with a frown. Urian also gravely said, "Yes. And this action has been going on for days. The evil aura in the core area is getting denser. That fellow might be preparing for its escape. Let's go and find out." Irina waved her hand to set up a magical barrier around those 3 children before walking toward the sealed area first. "There's nothing that one fireball can't solve. If there is, then just give it another 10. Krasu smiled confidently. "Frost might not be able to stop the evil aura from leaking, but it can seal all living things in ice." Urian was also smiling calmly. Mag was shocked by these 2 big bosses' confidence. He, too, quickly caught up with them. After a moment of hesitation, he softly asked, "That thing, can I cut a little bit of that fellow's flesh to take it back later?" "No, you weren't." Urian shook his head. "You were the one who was getting beat up when you were young." That was because I let them win." Krasu sounded weak instantly. He had suffered quite a bit when he'd been creating close combat magic in his youth. He had been beaten by all the magic casters of his own age. The worst was that even the younger magic casters of the lower tiers could defeat him. "Let bygones be bygones." Mag raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't do this to flex. He simply wanted to complete his mission. However, since he had already said that, he could only put on a calm look. Should we fry it or bake it? Irina asked seriously. I've never tried the taste of the devil before. This. We can only decide after we see the real thing, Mag replied after some pondering. Krasua and Urian looked at the two of them. One really dared to ask, while the other really dared to answer. The dirty fellows who believed in the devil were all eradicated, so the thunderstorm mountains regained their peace again. Only the cold winds were howling through the mountains, and the occasional thunder was clapping. In the deep part of the mountain range, there was a flat plain that was covered in snow, but there was an extra dark void now. Krasua tossed a fireball toward the void. The 2-meter-wide pitch-dark void seemed to be able to consume light. The fireball's light disappeared instantly when it went into it, as if it had never existed. A mass of mysterious black fog was gathered above that void, and some kind of monsters seemed to be squirming and hiding within it. The sealed land is right there. Urian stopped about 5 meters away, and looked at that black fog gravely. This black fog is very difficult to tackle. Everything under the hole is covered by the black fog, and nothing can be seen. The spiritual power is also restricted, and the actual situation beneath it cannot be discerned. Although the aura is slightly different, this black fog isn't too different from the black fog that we've encountered before. Leave it to me. Irina went forward with a casual expression, and raised her magic caster's staff. The black fog seemed to feel threatened, and after squirming around, it rushed toward Irina. Holy light, heed my call. Purify these evils. Irina chanted loudly as a beam of dazzling holy light shot out from the magic caster's staff. The evil black fog that was shone upon by the holy light disappeared like ice meeting fire. Accompanied by a series of nauseating screams, the black fog above the void was completely eradicated quickly. The holy light does work in eradicating the black fog. Urian nodded thoughtfully. The ice magic could only barely cover the void, but it was helpless in eradicating the black fog. The goddess of light has always been standing on the opposite side of evil, so it's not surprising when it could cleanse evil. However, Irina should be the only light great magic caster in this world, right? There was a hint of regret and worry in Krasua's tone. Now it's those things down there. Irina's gaze landed on that void as she raised her magic caster's staff up high. A bigger and brighter beam than the previous one shone into the void. Terrifying screams came from the void, and the originally pitch-dark void became bright under the holy light. All of them looked down while the holy light was still present. It wasn't a straight passage down. It resembled a giant cave more, and this void had chiseled an opening above this cave. This cave looks very deep, said Krasua with a frown. We can all see that. Urian rolled his eyes. Are we going to jump down right away? Irina was ready to go. To her, the unknown wasn't fearful, but rather interesting and challenging. I will take the lead. Krasua was the first to jump down. 3 fireballs hovered in front of him, and lit up the way down for him. See? Urian leaped downward too, but an ice step appeared underneath his feet swiftly after. 1 step would appear for his every step downward. It was as if he was taking a stroll midair leisurely like an expert. How are we going to go down? Mag asked Irina. Although he was sure that he wouldn't fall to his death even if he leaped down, it wouldn't look too good considering his image as the #1 knight in the world. You jump, I jump, Irina said to Mag lovingly. Let's go then. Mag held Irina's hand and leaped into the void. The cave was pitch black. Only Krasua's 3 fireballs were leading the way for them while lighting up and warming up the region. Mag appraised his surroundings. He guessed nobody knew that there was such a huge cavern underneath the thunderstorm mountains. Irina tossed out a few flares. After she saw the neatly chiseled walls in the distance, she felt amazed, and said, "This isn't a natural cavern. It should have been dug out, but it was done ages ago. It's even older than the history of Elves. Seems like these fellows are really left behind from the ancient times. They are still alive after countless years," said Urian hoarsely. The good news is most of their power should have been worn out by the time and the seal. Krasud chuckled carefreely. The bad news is we might not be able to defeat them despite their being in this state. Irina shrugged. That would be really very bad, Krasud exclaimed as he couldn't deny this possibility. We're going to reach the bottom, Krasud reminded them. 2 fireballs that had rebounded upward suddenly appeared beneath his feet, and his rapidly falling body was quickly reducing its speed. Urian was still strolling downward casually. Irina suddenly grabbed Mag's waist and leaned backward. Their originally heads-down postures were instantly corrected into heads-up postures. Layers of nets consisting of golden threads appeared underneath their feet. Their free-falling speed would decrease every time a net broke beneath them, so they simply landed gently and stably when they touched the ground. Great landing techniques, my lady, Mag praised inwardly while he grasped the long sword at his waist naturally. This cavern was over 1,000 meters deep. It was much colder than the surface, and its surroundings were very empty. Both Krasud's fireballs and Irina's magic caster's staff couldn't light up the cavern brightly. Irina turned one round on the spot before pointing in one direction. The evil aura came from there. Let's go and meet this ancient evil. Krasud took the lead with his magic caster's staff. The 3 fireballs split up into 6 and hovered around them, while one rushed forward in the lead. The black stone door was a good 100 meters tall, and there seemed to be a huge mural carved on it. Krasud made 3 fireballs and maneuvered them close to the stone door so that everyone could see the mural carved on the stone door clearly. What? Everyone was shocked. The huge mural immortalized a horrifying scene. The giant dragons were killing and tearing each other apart, the forest trolls were twisting their compatriots' heads off while having half an elf in their mouths, and the goblins had red eyes and were riding on orcs as they chased a group of monkeys hysterically. The boundless sea realm was stained red, with demon bodies floating around as clusters of horrifying big fishes tore them apart. Right at the center of the mural was an unknown object the size of a small mountain. The giant dragons were as small as mosquitoes in front of it, and there were several tentacles reaching out from a hexagonal seal on top that was suppressing it. Those tentacles were dotted with blood-red eyes that were gleaming with evil, as though they were about to break out from a seal. What monster is this? Krasud was taken aback. There actually exists such a disgusting thing in this world? The word evil must be the only word to describe it. Irina looked away as she felt herself about to throw up. This scene is familiar. It seems a little similar to what we saw when we went to Cannibal Island. Urian squinted and raised his hoarse voice a little. This should be the Great Old One, or maybe the Devil. It's similar to the stone statue the hairless monk discovered at the Urba tribe. Mag stared at the huge mural. The image presented was very similar to what Rex had described. If the stone statue could be the creation of those believers, then this mural that had stood the passage of time had to be a warning left behind by those who sealed the devil. That is not dead which can eternal lie. Mag saw that classic phrase at the corner of the mural. He had seen this phrase in many books over this period. It might have been some sort of coincidence, or perhaps it had a form of purpose. In that case, it's locked up in here right now. Krasud tightened his grip on his magic caster's staff, and his expression turned grave. Come on, let's meet this giant. Irina said excitedly. Aren't you afraid? I remember that you fear things with long tentacles like this. Urian asked as he turned back to look at Irina. What's the point of being scared? If the 4 of us join hands and can't even deal with a sealed thing, this world will probably be gone, right? Irina asked with a smile. It won't. We have even more precious things to protect. Mag held his long sword and walked towards the large door. Knights naturally had to be the vanguard in a battle. It made no sense to hide behind a magic caster. The towering large door appeared to be designed for a giant. Urian walked towards the door and closed his eyes. Very quickly, ice and frost started engulfing it. Around a minute later, Urian opened his eyes. He raised his hand, and multiple ice balls flew out, hitting the stone door at various spots. The large door opened and started to move back slowly. "Be careful," Irina reminded them. At the same time, she added a ray of holy light on everyone. As the large door opened, the thick black fog started surging out from the crack, and a low moaning sound could be heard, sounding like a demon from the abyss. The black fog disintegrated as it hit the holy light covering everyone. Mag held his sword with both hands, and entered the world behind the door slowly. The bright holy light dispelled the black fog, and pierced through the darkness. Behind the large door, there was an enormous cavern that was a few hundred meters tall. There was an altar with countless ancient inscriptions covering it. On it, there was a gigantic matter the size of a small mountain, chained up by numerous black chains. The four of them looked up at it in shock. It was an enormous octopus with countless tentacles coming out from underneath its body. On each tentacle were numerous eyes, gleaming with an evil shade of red. A hexagonal seal glowing with a faint golden light on top of its head was suppressing it, appearing as though it would disappear any moment. Chi, that octopus monster seemed to have also heard the sound of the door opening, and it started making a creepy moan. Mag felt as though countless eyes were staring at him. The eyes seemed to be focusing on them as the tentacles suddenly reached out towards the door. For those with trypophobia, this would definitely be a nightmare. Mag lifted his sword, ready for the battle. Krasua and Urian also held their magic caster's staff and magic wand, respectively. However, just when the tentacles were about to reach Mag, a faint golden wall suddenly rose around the altar. The tentacles hit the golden wall. There was a sudden sizzling sound as though it had hit a wall of fire, and the tentacle actually started disintegrating quickly. The enormous matter let out a shrill, and retracted its numerous tentacles. This seal is designed rather reasonably. Irina kept her magic caster's staff with a smile, and walked around the altar as she asked, "Could this be that thing's head?" "I think so. Its head alone is so big. One could only imagine how massive its body would be." Mag also kept his long sword as he sized up the octopus monster with a frown. The squirming tentacles were covered with a brownish-green sticky liquid, making one feel like throwing up. "Should we burn it or freeze it?" Krasua asked as he stroked his chin. Urian walked around the altar with a grave expression, and said, "Normal magic has no effect on the black fog, so I wouldn't expect it to have much of an effect on it. It doesn't look very active in this state, which means that the seal is still effective. I think the better option is to build another seal on top of the current one. This fellow has a horrifying power, and once it's released, we will not be able to do anything to it." Krasua frowned and stared at the octopus monster for a while before saying with a nod, "All right. I'll listen to you this time. What do you think?" Irina turned to look at Mag. Mag agreed with Urian. This was merely the head of the great old one that had been severed off and sealed for an infinite period, but standing in front of it still made one feel very small. He had to admit that even if the four of them joined hands, he still wasn't confident to win the battle against this fellow should it break free of the seal. However, he had a mission to complete. Resealing it was just a plan to slow it down. If they could not find a way to finish off the great old ones, the latter would still break free from the seal one day, and cause chaos to the world. "I want to try cutting it," Mag said seriously. He really wasn't trying to act cool. He had no choice. "Just one slash," Mag said. "Sure. You're brave. I'll go with you," Krasua said with a pat on his chest. "I can slow it down," Urian said with a nod. "I can open up a path within the seal for you with the holy light. However, I won't be able to estimate the amount of black fog within, so you might only have a very short time. You must return immediately after the slash," Irina said with a smile. "All right." Mag nodded. He held his sword with both hands and stood before the altar. After a gentle sigh, his expression became very grave. "Here comes," Irina commanded. She shot out a dazzling ray of holy light from her magic caster's staff, which lit up the entire cave in an instant. The holy light opened up a pathway through the dense black fog, right towards the center of the octopus monster's head, leaving a deep burn mark on its head. However, it did not manage to cause any substantial harm to the octopus monster. Almost at the same time, Urian planted his magic caster's staff on the ground, causing the temperature in the cave to lower by 10 degrees Celsius. Frost started forming and expanding quickly from his feet, moving towards the octopus monster. In no time at all, a layer of frost had already formed on the octopus monster's tentacles. The speed at which it squirmed was visibly slower, and it was very obvious that its movements were slowed down and restricted. "Hey! Have a taste of my giant fireball!" Urian shouted. He jumped up tens of meters high, and waved his magic caster's staff towards the octopus monster. A few giant fireballs started flying towards the octopus monster like meteorites. Chi, chi, the octopus monster seemed to be enraged by their movements, and let out a low moan. It used its tentacles to sweep away multiple giant fireballs, but some of them still managed to land on its tentacles, exploding to leave traces of burn marks. However, the injuries inflicted on it healed quickly. Now, at the moment Irina shot the holy light out, Mag chased the light and dashed into the seal. He raised his long sword, and slashed down on the tentacle closest to him. The Tiandu sword was not considered a very sharp sword, but it was a very hard sword. That, together with Mag's techniques and strength, made the sword as good as the sharpest sword. However, when the sword landed on the tentacle, it was as though it had slashed into a swamp. The sticky and soft tentacle dampened the majority of the strength used in that slash, and at the same time the multiple suction pads on the tentacle held on tightly to the Tiandu sword, making it difficult for Mag to pull out the sword. The multiple pairs of blood-red eyes were already staring at Mag, just like how a wild beast set its eyes on its prey. Even more tentacles started swarming over, which showed that the octopus monster had already noticed his intrusion. The slash did nothing at all, and the sword was stuck because of the suction pads. There was probably no situation worse than this. Mag only had a single choice left, and that was to forsake the sword. Irina and the rest should be able to buy him enough time to return. Mag looked at the Tiandu sword, which he held tightly. The handle of the sword was gleaming faintly, as though it was trying to say something. In that moment of frenzy, Mag suddenly pulled out Fathead Fish from his waist, and chopped right down on the tentacle. Thud! The tentacle, which was as thick as a person's waist, broke off cleanly. That's it! Mag's eyes lit up. He had no time to be shocked. He quickly put Fathead Fish back at his waist, and lugged Tiandu's sword, which still had part of a struggling tentacle stuck to it, over his shoulder as he made a mad dash. The tunnel made by the holy light was getting smaller and smaller as the black fog surrounding it squeezed it tight. At the same time, there were countless tentacles swarming over behind Mag Bam. Mag made it out after a tight squeeze as he threw his body at the seal. He reached a hand out to press on the stone wall, leaving a palm print that was half an inch deep. Behind him, the multiple tentacles knocked into the golden glow. With a flash of light, the tentacles all disintegrated, causing the octopus monster to let out a low, enraged howl. Alex indeed. You can't find such guts and fight in anyone else among the younger generation. Krasil looked at Mag with admiration. Only by getting closer to death can you understand the true meaning of survival. Mag tried to sound as calm as possible as he wiped his cold sweat away. I didn't expect that you could really cut this monster's tentacle. Urian looked at the section of tentacle still stuck on Mag's sword in shock. The tentacle, which was brought out of the seal, had shrunk significantly. However, it was still as thick as an adult's thigh. Just that section of the tentacle, which was a little longer than a meter, had 8 eyeballs on it. After the tentacle was cut off, the redness in the eyes was gone, but they still looked very scary and creepy. This monster probably has very strong self-recovery abilities. Its broken tentacle only took 3 breaths to fully recover. Therefore, losing a section of its tentacle isn't a problem for it at all, Irina said when she saw the octopus monster with its fully recovered tentacles. That also included the blow Krasuo inflicted on it just now. The holy light deals it a much greater blow compared to normal magic indeed. It's not so easy for it to recover from that, Urian said thoughtfully as he noticed the wound that was still at the octopus monster's glabella. I could feel the might of that fellow very clearly within the seal. It had an unimaginable strength and unparalleled spiritual power, Mag remarked as the person who went into the seal. It seems like the only thing that we can do now is to reinforce the seal so that it cannot escape or attract its believers over for the time being. After that, we'll have to think of a way again, Urian said with a frown as he started walking around the ancient inscriptions on the altar. If you need any materials, I have some here. Take a look if you could use any of them. Krasuo threw a storage ring to Urian. I also have a batch of spell formation materials. Irina waved her magic caster's staff, and a pile of materials, glowing in different colored light, appeared in front of Mag. Mag pulled the Tiandu sword out from the tentacle quietly while no one was taking notice. After that, he used Fathead Fish to cut a section of the tentacle with the eyes, and thought to himself, "System, quickly keep this fresh tentacle of the Great Old One." Ding! An ingredient from an organism of unknown strength received. Congratulations on completing a top-tier mission, obtaining an ingredient from a Great Old One. The test results will be sent to the host after 24 hours. Please remember to check. The section of the octopus tentacle in Mag's hand disappeared as the system's voice rang in his head. Although he did not know what kind of results the system could test out, that was probably the only thing they could look forward to as of now. Perhaps they would be able to find a way to deal with this octopus monster through information on the test report. The scary part about the Great Old Ones wasn't their size, but rather their ability to influence and spiritually control organisms anywhere. Even sealed thousands of meters deep underground and enveloped by layers of spell formations, they were still influencing this world. Chapter 1688 Just don't like the way it looks. The best formation master in Chaos City would be Novan. I can ask him to come, Krasuo said. Ashley is also one of the Elves' best formation masters. She should have done a lot of research on the Elves' ancient spell formations. I can get her to assist you, Irina suggested. The first person Mag thought of was Bablat. Although she was not really trustworthy, and was also too young to be considered a formation master, she did mention more than once that she'd teleport herself over from the Moon Nation to Norland continent by repairing an ancient teleportation portal. There was almost no record of the Moon Nation on the Norland continent, but the languages of these two worlds were very similar. That was as suspicious as the broken documentation on the Great Old Ones. Perhaps the time the Moon Nation lost connection with the Norland continent was similar to the period when the Great Old Ones existed? If that was the case, the teleportation portal that Babla repaired might be from the same period as the spell formation at the altar. Maybe she might be able to understand the spell formation. In that case, we should leave first. I will use the Holy Light technique to set up an isolation spell formation that can last around 7 days so that the evil aura will not seep out anymore. Irina picked 6 silvery white stones from the materials taken out, and placed them at various parts around the altar. After that, she used her magic caster's staff to carve some complicated lines and inscriptions between them. Irina catalyzed the spell formation, and the 6 stones glowed with a faint golden light, forming 6 light screens and surrounding the entire altar. The octopus monster, which was within the seal, stopped moving, only letting out an ambiguous low moan. The devilish low tone, which sounded like a strange mock, echoed around the cave. Lock your gaze and hold your breath. Don't be bewitched by its sound. We have to leave this place right now. Urian said in a very serious tone suddenly as he slapped a shot of frost magic at Krasuo, who became dazed out. Krasuo came back to his senses, and his expression changed slightly. He quickly followed behind Urian and left the cave. After that, he somewhat fearfully said, "This monster's bewitching skill is really scary. I don't even know when I fell into its trap. Mag held his long sword in one hand while he bit the tip of his tongue gently to keep himself awake. He held Irina's hand in his other hand, and dashed out of the cave. Around 5 minutes later, they all escaped from the cave. Phew! Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Firstly, it was because the air underground was indeed a little dirty. Secondly, it was because they felt as though they'd made a narrow escape. Mag was still fine, and did not feel any strong emotions. However, it was not the same for Urian and Krasu. After all, they were the legends that stood at their peak for years. It was inevitable that they would be in a little disbelief when they suddenly realized that something way stronger than them actually existed. I think there is a need to keep this matter a secret. If someone with an ulterior motive breaks the seal and releases that fellow, it won't be easy for us to lock it up again, Mag told everyone. You can never satisfy greed. We cannot guarantee that others will be able to withstand his temptation. We can't even guarantee if we will be able to withstand it, so it's best if fewer people know about the existence of this place. Urian nodded. I agree too. Other than the spell formation masters, we need to repair the spell formation. No one else must know about this at the moment. Irina nodded. I have no opinion. If you guys say no, I won't talk about it. Krasu nodded. Then what do we do with this tentacle? Mag asked as he raised the sword with the tentacle still sticking on it. The thick tentacle was covered with a layer of greenish-black sticky liquid. The dead eyes looked creepy and disgusting. Why don't we roast it for supper? I'm a little hungry, Krasu suggested. Should we dig the eyes out to roast? Then we won't have to waste more pig's eyes, Irina suggested thoughtfully. Urian glanced at the tentacle as he raised his brow, and said, You guys can go ahead. I'm not eating that. I think we should preserve it so that we can use this as evidence for the existence of the Great Old Ones, Mag said with a shake of his head. It was not that he was afraid to cut it up, but rather whether this octopus tentacle was edible depended on the system's test results. No one could guarantee what would happen after eating an old octopus that had been around for numerous years, and he did not intend to test it himself. That's fine too. Urian nodded. With a wave of his hand, a layer of frost appeared on the octopus tentacle, sealing it up solidly. Mag whistled, and Ozzy, who had been circling around in the sky for a long time, dashed down in the form of a flash of purple lightning, and landed gently in front of them. What about those fellows we knocked out? Irina asked. Seal the entrance of the cave temporarily, and let the Grey Temple come to do a mass cleanup. They're more professional. Mag carried the 3 unconscious kids over, and placed them gently on Ozzy's back. That's not a bad idea. It's too much of a hassle to bring so many people back. Irina's eyes lit up as she jumped onto the griffin's back with a smile. Urian waved his hand and sealed the entrance of the cave with ice. At the same time, he used some snow and frost so that it would be difficult for an ordinary person to see anything special about the place. The griffin flapped its wings and quickly disappeared on the horizon of the Thunderstorm Mountains. Back at Chaos City, Mag handed the 3 children over to the City Lord's castle. The City Lord's castle might be able to help them find their families, and even if they weren't able to do so, the kids could stay in the orphanage. Krasu and Urian went to look for Novan, while Mag and Irina told Michael what happened at the Thunderstorm Mountains so that the Grey Temple could go over to clear things up. Michael was shocked after hearing from Mag, and was speechless when he saw the section of the octopus tentacle. However, as the city lord, he could calm down very quickly. He looked at Mag, and said, All right. I'll go over personally to look for Roland and gather all the spell formation masters in Chaos City so Urian can choose whom needs. All right. Mag nodded. Michael had always been a trustworthy partner. At the same time, he was also someone who could provide them with a lot of help. In that case, we'll leave first. Michael bade his farewell as he left with Irina. After leaving the city lord's castle, Irina teleported her and Mag straight back to the first floor of the restaurant. Mag removed his mask and went into the kitchen to wash his hands before pouring 2 glasses of red wine. Whatever happened tonight was too thrilling. It was like dancing on knives. I have to drink a little to calm my nerves. Irina received the glass of wine with a smile, and asked Mag, "Why did you insist on cutting it just now?" Mag raised his glass, and took a sip before replying, "I just don't like the way it looks." Chapter 1689 System, Where's My Goat? Yes, everyone replied in harmony, and immediately displayed their professionalism. They dug out a huge hole, and threw all the corpses inside before a few of the fire magic casters threw a few fireballs in to reduce the corpses to ashes immediately. After that, they buried the ashes with soil, and the place quickly reverted to a patch of flat land. "Let's go back." After personally making sure that they did not leave out any of the corpses, Roland led the team back, and no one asked anything throughout the entire journey. The Grey Temple had dealt with some strange incidents recently, and captured a few strange people. However, they would usually not have to do anything when they were activated, and only had to clean up the scene, just like a team of professional cleaners. However, these events were considered classified information in Grey Temple. It was prohibited to discuss them even between members of the Grey Temple. Once anything leaked out, it would not be a simple disciplinary punishment. "Sir, this is the statement by those we arrested in the day." Bolton walked into Roland's office, closed the door, and placed a stack of statements sealed in craft paper on the desk. He looked at Roland, and hesitated for a while before saying, "The things they said, a part of them is true." Roland opened the craft paper and flipped through the statements. Bolton's expression changed slightly. Roland did not say much, but that meant a lot. Those fellows arrested in the day were all a little crazy. They honored a certain evil god, and prayed that the evil god could resurface on land one day, and turn the entire Norland continent into burning hell, while they would become the slaves of the evil god, and obtain power and immortality. One or two of such people might just be a coincidental mental instability, but when there was a group of such people who were not even wavering in their belief, to the extent of willingly giving up their life to release the evil god, things would become slightly scary. If such an evil god really existed, it would definitely be a huge threat to the Norland continent. Maybe it was even fair to say that once it appeared, it would be an apocalypse. Bolton was not a timid person. As the manager of the Grey Temple's information department, he was even more aware of what it meant for Roland to put so much attention on a matter, to the point of listing it as classified information. "Go and interrogate those fellows we brought back at night. Not just their actions and motive, don't even leave the details of their dreams out. The important information might be in their dreams." Roland pulled out a piece of statement paper and pushed it to Bolton. Bolton picked up that piece of statement paper. Its content was mainly about a ridiculous dream. There was a huge and unknown matter chained and trapped underground. There were a cave a few thousand meters tall and numerous black pathways. A voice was calling him. He did not know how much value this paper of ridiculous dream descriptions had, but he knew Roland's intention clearly. His aim was the evil god behind these fellows' crazy dreams. "Go on. We still have a lot of work to do, and there's not much time left," Roland said calmly as he lowered his head to continue reading the statements. "Yes, sir." Bolton turned and exited the office. He did not know how to explain to his subordinates who had been mentally drained by those fellows. However, the interrogations that were to come might be even more torturous. The swirling red wine in the glass and the intoxicating beauty did not manage to make Mag drunk. He laid Irina, who was knocked out in his embrace, gently on the bed and helped her remove her robe. Mag returned to his room with a smile, locked the door, and closed his eyes as he opened the mutton soup experience bag. This fool! How infuriating! In the room next door, Irina opened her eyes and clenched her fists angrily. Mutton soup could be found almost anywhere, and had its own variations because of the uniqueness of the different geographical locations. This mutton soup recipe that the system gave Mag was said to have incorporated the strengths of the different recipes. Mag was actually quite fond of mutton soup, but the seemingly simple mutton soup actually required a lot of skill because mutton had a very strong smell. Once it was not done well, the soup would have that strong smell which made people steer clear of it. Those owners of mutton restaurants that I've dissed, they aren't on the list, right? Mag raised his brow a little. Things felt a little amiss all of a sudden. He was not a harsh person, but his expectations were higher than normal people's. He did not like those internet-famous shops where the owners did not put in effort into the food. He always thought that actions spoke louder than words. Of course, that would not sound very pleasing to the ears. It didn't matter, since he didn't care if his words were pleasing to others. Just like how he couldn't control what others were going to say about him, he, too, could express his honest opinions. Host, please stop comforting yourself, and quickly enter the test field for the god of cookery. The system's voice sounded. System, can I just express my apologies here? I feel that I was indeed a little too much with my words in the past. Why don't you go on live so that I can apologize to the chefs I've hurt in the past? Mag said with a smile. Those chefs all said that they won't forgive you, the system replied. Hee hee. Mag rolled his eyes. It was to be expected. He secretly gave the middle finger, and said with disdain, isn't it just a bowl of perfect mutton soup? All you fellows incapable of protecting the recipe your ancestors left behind should wait and see what is really called mutton soup. After that, Mag kicked open the door to the test field for the god of cookery. Inside, was very joyous as well. This spell formation, Novan was standing by the altar, looking at the spell formation with a frown while at the same time dispelling the continuous murmuring by his ears. Can you solve it? Krasu asked nervously. Novan shook his head with a grave expression as he said, it's very difficult. I am not very good with ancient spell formations, since there are too few records preserved, and the rare few have also been severely damaged. I'm afraid no one in this world has ever seen a complete ancient spell formation, much less done any research on it. If even you can't do anything about it, I'm afraid no one can, Krasu said with a frown. Nothing is absolute. Perhaps there is someone who has done some research on ancient spell formations. We can gather some spell formation masters to study the spell formation of this seal to see if we can find something. Novan shook his head. He pulled out a photo stone and snapped a shot of a corner of the spell formation. System, where's my goat? Where did that huge goat go? The next morning, Mag howled loudly with his eyes glaring at the open fridge. Ding! The disappearance of the mutton triggered a new mission. Please reach the blue grassland at the extremely cold place in the northwestern area to search for and catch a black goat called polar black goat within 3 days. Once you succeed in your mission, you will receive the right to use the polar black goat as an ingredient in another mysterious gift. The system's voice sounded. F***ck, here you go again. Mag rolled his eyes. He had just had a premonition that the system had something up its sleeve. Indeed, even if he wasn't made to go to the extreme cold in the northwestern area to pick the goat's feces, he still had to go, just that now he had to go there to catch the goat itself. The blue grassland, do you think I'm a wolf from children's stories? Mag rolled his eyes. He said in a firm tone, the break is already over. I cannot stand my customers up. What if they were to curse me to become a customer who keeps being stood up by chefs in my next life? The 3-day countdown has already started. If you fail the mission, the system will take back the rights to the mutton soup recipe, the system replied calmly. Mag frowned silently for a very long time before silently giving the middle finger. Who would have known how many black goats he had slaughtered, how many goats' bones he had chopped up, and how much mutton he had sliced last night just to make a bowl of rich, white and fresh mutton soup that he was satisfied with. He wanted to get up early today to make everyone a warm and delicious bowl of mutton soup, but the system foiled his plans. I can do the mission, but you'll have to at least give me a location. The extremely cold place in the northwestern area is acres wide. Where do you want me to find the blue grassland and catch the black goat? Mag dissed. The blue grassland is very striking in the extreme cold place in the northwestern area. I believe you would be able to find it very easily. As for the black goat, you might be able to get more useful information from the local shepherds. That means no information at all. Mag pressed his lips together. He did not expect the system to give him any more hints. After thinking for a while, he wrote a notice of a one-day extension for the break and hung it at the door. He would have to go sooner or later. To be safe, it was better to finish the mission earlier. Ferris was the first to arrive at the restaurant. The moment she entered, she immediately asked Mag with bewilderment, "Boss, why are we on a break again today?" "I'll let everyone know once the rest have arrived," Mag said with a smile. Everyone started arriving subsequently, including Shirley, who had recovered from her injuries, and officially returned to the team. They just had a break yesterday, and Mag put out another notice for a break today again. That made everyone a little puzzled. "Since everyone is here, I will announce the reason we are having a break today." Mag looked at everyone with a smile, and said, "I feel that everyone has been too busy during this period, and all of you didn't really have the time to sit down and chat with each other. We didn't even have enough opportunity for the new members to get to know each other. That is an extremely regretful thing for team bonding. Therefore, I've decided that we would go on a break today and organize a team bonding session with all the employees. We are going to the blue grassland in the northwestern area to play." Amy's eyes lit up as she said with surprise, "Are we going to the grassland to catch goats?" "We can do that too." Mag nodded with a smile. "The northwestern area should be extremely cold right now," Elizabeth said hesitantly. The previous team bonding session was set at the Demon Islands. Everyone had an enjoyable time basking in the sun and playing with water. "Then it's perfect to ski and snowboard there," Mag said. Catching goats wasn't something major, but it would take up a lot of time. Therefore, it was suitable to bring everyone along and let the team bond at the same time. Angela and Jane weren't very familiar with everyone, so this could be an opportunity for everyone to strengthen their friendship. Skiing. Angela's and Jane's eyes lit up. The Demon Islands were hot all year round, and they'd never even seen frost before, not to mention going skiing. The others also appeared very interested. "I have something on today, so I won't be having fun with you all." After finishing her porridge, Irina waved to everyone and disappeared amidst a golden glow. Mag knew that she had to be worried about the issue at the Thunderstorm Mountains, so he did not ask her to stay. He picked up his empty bowl, and said, "All right, everyone, have your breakfast, and then we'll get ready to set off." "Father, what about me? Can I skip classes and go to catch goats?" Amy asked expectantly. "Does little Amy like catching goats?" Mag asked with a smile. Goats are so cute, they must be delicious," Amy said with a nod. Mag smiled. He stroked Amy's head, and said, "I doubt Master Urian has time for class today. There's no need to take leave. Little Amy can join us." Yippee! Amy jumped happily. It was great to be able to play for 2 days. After breakfast, Mag brought some snacks and seasoning along before leading the group out. Mag rented a 5th-tier eagle flying steed. It was a flying magic beast that used its head as a weapon, so it almost banged its way to extinction. It was nothing special, except that it could carry a huge load, and its speed was almost that of a 7th-tier flying magic beast. The downside was that it could not block out the wind. However, that was no problem to Mag and the rest, as Babla's windshield could easily do the job. "Actually, I can bring everyone over," Yabimiya said as she sat on the eagle's back. "We're going out to play today, how can we tire you out?" Mag said with a shake of his head. He was not a stingy boss. He looked at everyone with a smile, and said, "The journey would take around 3 hours. Why don't we play a game of werewolf?" Werewolf. Everyone looked at Mag with bewilderment. Werewolf is a rather interesting strategy game. The game splits the players up into two camps, the werewolf camp and the good people camp. The good people win when all the werewolves are eliminated, and the werewolves win when all the villagers are eliminated. Here are the rules. As Mag was someone who didn't enjoy playing seated games, Werewolf was one of the rare seated games that he knew, and it was also suitable for a setting with a large number of people like now. Work in the restaurant was usually rather hectic. Therefore, even though everyone had been working together, and many stayed in the same dormitory, they actually didn't have much time to really communicate and interact with each other. This completely new game was quite a challenge to the ladies. Despite making a lot of mistakes, there was still a lot of laughter and joy. This was supposed to be a nerve-wracking strategy detective game, but it became a self-exposing game, and amidst all the truths and lies, Mag, the initiator of the game, became the biggest loser. Amy suddenly stood up and pointed at the horizon as she exclaimed, "Wow, why is that grassland blue? Looks like we've arrived." Mag stood up and looked out toward the horizon that slowly became blue. His eyes lit up as he didn't expect there to really be a piece of blue grassland at the extremely cold place in the northwestern area. Chapter 1691. You're just after her body. The pale Constantine held his heart, and lovingly said, "You don't understand, father. I like Miss Shirley, and I am willing to give up everything for her. I don't care about being the Lewis family's young master." Clap. Kurt slapped Constantine across his face. He shivered, and angrily said, "Do you call that love? You're just after her body. You're cheap." Constantine stumbled 2 steps backward, and shook his head at Kurt devastatingly. "No. It's not like that, she's different. She's different from those women." "Ha, different? Does she have 3 legs or horns on her head?" Kurt was so furious that he smiled instead. "I think you're bewitched. You've lost your mind over a woman that you don't even know where she is. I will kick you out of the house if you continue like this. I will take it as if I have never had a son like you. She. Words aren't enough to describe her beauty. Father, no matter how you coerce me, I will never give her up. She is my moonlight, an irreplaceable woman," Constantine said with conviction and without any hints of backing down. "I didn't expect young Master Constantine, who is a well-known Casanova, to have such a faithful aspect. That's really astonishing. Haha. All the rich young masters pale in front of Boss Mag. Isn't he asking for trouble by trying to pursue one of the ladies from Mamie restaurant?" "That's true. Apparently, Boss Mag has already become the most charismatic man in Chaos City now. He has broken the record of the City Lord's 28-year-old claim on that title. However, we haven't seen Miss Shirley for a while now, right?" The customers, who were initially devastated after learning that Mamie restaurant was closed for the day, began to softly talk among themselves. Kurt glared at Constantine furiously before he turned around, and boarded his horse-drawn carriage. Constantine sat in front of the restaurant's entrance in a daze for a while before leaving with a disappointed expression. The most miserable kind of love was when the other party suddenly appeared just as you were about to give up, and then suddenly disappeared without any warning just as you got your hopes up. His love for Miss Shirley was just like that. "Miss Shirley. I will always wait for you to return. I will not miss you again next time," Constantine murmured with an aimless gaze. The blue grassland was situated at an extremely cold place in the northwestern area. Its name might not have even appeared on the map if it weren't for the plant called silver blue grass. On their journey to the north, the lands were all covered in snow and ice, and the northwestern area got even colder. Nothing else could be seen, let alone any green plants. However, there weren't any signs of snow in this blue grassland. Silver-blue vegetation could be seen stretching all the way to the horizon. It made the eyes of all of them who were a little sick of the snowy scene brighten up. "What a beautiful grassland! The grass is actually blue," exclaimed Anna. Would the sheep be blue too? Amy poked her head out and looked down. She swept her gaze around, trying to locate the sheep. Elizabeth was also looking down with amazement as she lamented, "The temperature here is higher than the other areas. It felt just like spring. Since we have come to such an interesting place, why don't we go down to take a look?" Mag navigated the iron-head eagle downward. He was also murmuring inwardly. "This grassland is so blue. It doesn't look like the place where the polar black goat could be found. Wasn't it asking for its own death by wearing a black coat in this sea of blue?" As the altitude got lower, the scenery on the ground got clearer. The blue sea was formed by a kind of light blue grass whose height was about 20 centimeters. Apart from the blue grass, there were also some other plants growing intermittently among the little blue grass. However, they weren't growing as densely as the blue grass, so the grassland appeared to be blue. The giant shadow cast by the iron-head eagle caused the animals in the plain to panic. A flock of blue sheep started to run hysterically in the plain. If they weren't low enough, they almost wouldn't be able to see that a big flock of sheep was hiding among the grass. "Wow! The sheep are really blue!" Amy exclaimed ecstatically as she rubbed up a small fireball between her hands. "There really are blue sheep! They're so special!" All the ladies were also looking at those sheep with amazement. Sheep wasn't a rare animal, but blue sheep were different. They had never seen them before. This is the charm of biological evolution. The sheep here had undergone natural selection, and after accumulating the small variations, the blue wool was kept. Hence, they became blue sheep. Mag wasn't very surprised. Biological evolution was an amazing thing. Furthermore, the Norland continent had 10 times or 100 times more species than Earth. Everyone didn't quite understand Mag's words, but that didn't stop them from thinking that Mag was very knowledgeable. "Then, can we eat that sheep, Father?" Amy gulped with an expectant gaze. The silver blue grass is a special plant that is blue throughout the year, and can generate heat by itself. Therefore, there is such a unique blue grassland here. However, it isn't poisonous, so the sheep that eats this silver blue grass for survival can be eaten as food too. Mag nodded. He had bought a map and a brief introduction to the blue grassland when he went to rent the flying steed this morning. As there was only the silver blue grass in this plain and nothing else was special about it, the intel was very brief. The polar black goat wasn't even mentioned in it. "That's great!" Amy raised the little fireball in her hand up, and was ready to release an exploding fireball to get her lunch. "Wait a section." Mag quickly stopped the little one and shook his head. "It's very difficult to handle sheep that were blown to death. Moreover, our target isn't this sheep, but a black goat. That is the most scrumptious goat in this plain." "A black goat?" Amy retracted her hand and looked around on her tiptoes. She shook her head. "But, there even isn't a black rock here. Where are we going to find the black goat?" All of them were looking around them for as far as they could. They could occasionally see all kinds of animals running about, but they didn't see any black goats. They couldn't even see a black boar. "Sheep that can run system, is there something wrong with your information? Or, you've lost the sheep that you are rearing?" asked Mag inwardly. "Could the host complete the mission independently?" answered the system. Mag rolled his eyes. "You are a dog if that goat isn't in this blue grassland." The system gravely said, "Could the host please respect this system? This system isn't a dog system." Mag chuckled. "Hee hee. I'm praising you for raising your sheep so well. You are a good shepherd dog." "Of course. As an all-around god of cookery cultivation system, shepherd," the system's voice faltered, and then furiously said, "Isn't a shepherd dog a dog too? I don't know whether a shepherd dog is a dog, but you're a real dog." Mag rolled his eyes. God knew where the system had reared its goats. "Look! There's a tent over there, and there seem to be herders too," Yabimiya said, pointing forward to the right. Mag looked where she was pointing, and that was a place that was close to the grassland's northwestern borders. There was a towering snow mountain far away, and the melted snow converged into a river, and gradually flowed into the grassland. Meanwhile, those colorful tents that were stitched together from all kinds of beast skins were set up along the two sides of the river. Since there are herders, let's go down and take a look. Perhaps they know where we could catch that goat. Mag had an idea, so he made the iron-head eagle dive down. Woo! An ear-piercing clarion came from the herder's tent, and the women and children ran back into the tents. The men were holding longbows and spears as they stood guard in front of the tents. They were watching the giant eagle diving down with worry and fear on their faces. They had never seen such a huge eagle in the blue grassland before. The snow eagles that they reared couldn't even compare to one of its claws. However, they had nowhere to retreat. Their families and loved ones were right behind them. "Chief, what's that thing?" a young man asked the old man in front of him in a quivering voice. "It might have come from the back of the snow mountain. Don't panic, everyone. If its target is the sheep, we'll let it be. If its target is the tents behind us, then we'll have to stop it with our lives," said Eddie gravely. "Yes," all the herders answered in unison. However, that giant eagle didn't dash toward the tents right away. It circled one round before landing on a mound next to them gradually, and a group of people disembarked from that giant eagle's back. "Look, Chief! There are people on that eagle's back. Those people don't seem to be hostile toward us." All the herders were shocked when they saw that, but their expressions were much more relieved. "Don't let down your guard yet. We're not certain that they are good or bad people yet," Eddie said gravely as his eyes locked on the group that disembarked from the eagle's back like a falcon. There were a total of 12 people, 1 man, 9 women, and 2 children. Judging from their clothes, they shouldn't belong to the grassland. Since they could tame this giant eagle to be their steed, they definitely weren't ordinary people. The men here were just an ordinary herding tribe on this grassland. There was no way they could afford to antagonize these people. They seem to be rather afraid of us. Amy hugged Ugly Duckling as she looked at those herders, who were holding longbows and spears, with perplexment. "But we are so adorable." "Meow, meow." Ugly Duckling gave her an adorable look in her arms. "Excluding you," said Amy without any hesitation after giving it a quick glance. "Meow." Ugly Duckling was immediately deflated, and it rolled its eyes while it lost all its dreams. "We're considered as uninvited guests, so it's natural that they're wary of us. We just have to act normal later." Mag smiled, and then led everyone toward the tent. These herders didn't look too different from the herders in other places. The silver-blue grass had provided a hard-to-find fertile meadow in the northwestern region for them, while the melted snow solved their drinking water issue. However, perhaps it was due to the silver-blue grass, but these herders' complexion had a tinge of blue apart from the usual tan, though they weren't as blue as the natives of Pandora. They looked almost no different from humans. Eddie loudly shouted, "Halt! Who are you? Why are you guys here?" Mag stopped about 20 meters away from those herders and smiled. "How do you do? We are here for a vacation. We were simply attracted by this blue grassland, and we mean no harm." He was worried that these herders wouldn't know the common tongue at first, but this elderly herder seemed to be well versed in it. Eddie began to size Mag up. This young man didn't look like a powerhouse. His physique wasn't even as good as that of the young men in the tribe, and he also didn't have any weapons on him. He had a warm smile, and didn't look like a bad guy. Meanwhile, a 4 to 5 years old little girl was standing next to him with a weird little thing in her arms. Behind him was a bevy of beautiful women. Yes, extremely beautiful women. The grassland couldn't have such exquisite women. Regardless of whether it was the blistering cold wind from the snow mountain or the hot sun throughout the day, they all could make the women in the grassland lose their exquisiteness. Of course, since he could possess such a bevy of beautiful women, this man had to have a very esteemed identity. He wasn't someone that their tiny tribe could antagonize. This was the rationale that Eddie learned during his travels when he was young. The herders were staring at the beautiful women behind the man in a daze. This was a beautiful scenery that had never appeared in the grassland before, beauties that they might never see again in their lives. After making sure that the other party wasn't hostile, and was an existence that their tribe couldn't antagonize, Eddie kept his longbow and indicated to the herders to be at ease. He placed one hand across his chest, bowed slightly to Mag, and respectfully said, "Esteemed guests, we welcome your arrival." The herders swiftly changed their inappropriate expression and stares after seeing Eddie so respectful. They, too, bowed in greeting nervously. Mag smilingly said, "You are being too courteous. We're simply passing by. We heard that roast mutton in the grassland is great, so we want to try it out. We want to eat sheep. Sheep that can run." Amy came forward and pointed at those sheep which were grazing afar. "What a cute little girl!" The herders' eyes all lit up when they saw Amy. The herders' children grew up on the horseback and tumbled around in the grassland. They were all muddy little brats, and the herders had never seen such an exquisite little girl before. Eddie's eyes lit up. He slapped his chest, and confidently said, "Roast mutton. That is what we, the Buck tribe, are best at. This way please, esteemed guests. I will get my people to slaughter the sheep, and I will roast it for you personally." The herders in the grassland were mostly experts on roasting meat. No matter if it was the roast whole lamb from the grassland of Inner Mongolia, or the Lopner people's roasted mutton cubes on rose willow branch, one would be able to taste it if he or she was lucky. Mag had already learned how to roast mutton kebab and roast pig's eyes, but he wouldn't dare to call himself an expert on roasting. He had only learned the basics. It would be best if he could learn some tricks from the real experts. The greatest change he had undergone after coming to this world was perhaps learning to humble himself. Mag had never had a target to work hard for in his life previously, and he'd lived simply to enjoy himself, but it was different now. He'd already seen the depth of the occupation of chefs, which resembled the boundless sea of stars. He continued to learn and improve in order to be one of the stars among it. "This way please, guests." Eddie led Mag and the ladies into a big tent. The interior of the tent was very simple. The silver blue grass on the ground was cut, and the ground was only flattened simply. There was only a clay stove, and all the families brought a small camp stool each to the tent. They tried very hard to get 12 of them. The sheepskin tent insulated them from the wind and was warm. However, there was a tinge of animal stench in it. This was nothing to the herders, as they all smelled like that since they spent all their time with their herds. However, to Mag and the ladies, this smell wasn't very friendly. "Please wait here for a moment, my esteemed guests. I will go roast mutton for all of you now. The roast whole lamb is the main dish, but it takes a longer time. Hence, I will roast some mutton for you to eat first." After settling Mag and the ladies into the tent, Eddie had some nimble girls accompany them in the tent too. "It's the smell of the sheep." Amy sniffed around as she checked out her surroundings, but she wasn't disdainful of it. After a while, a few herders came in with terracotta bowls, and passed a bowl of piping hot sheep's milk to Mag and the ladies. They smiled and gestured to them to drink it. Although these herders didn't know how to speak the common tongue, their friendly smiles were very infectious. Maybe it was their hospitality or the warm milk smelled too enticing, but all of them drank the sheep's milk. Mag had drunk sheep's milk in the grassland before. The sheep's milk that the herders processed themselves would still have some rank odor even after they boiled it. It wasn't as good as one imagined. But the sheep's milk this time had exceeded his expectations. The sheep's milk's rank odor was very well processed. They almost couldn't sense its existence, or perhaps they could say that there wasn't any rank odor in this sheep's milk. It tasted warm and sweet, and was completely different from the sheep's milk Mag had before. He felt warm all over, and tasted a sweet scent in his mouth as soon as he drank it. Mag couldn't help praising with brightened eyes. Good milk. Camilla and Angela looked up at Mag at the same time. Good sheep's milk, Mag calmly added. What a close shave. He almost said something he wasn't allowed to say. Gulp, gulp. The delicious sheep's milk soon ended up in all their tummies, and their initial uneasiness was also broken by that bowl of warm sheep's milk. The herders, too, smiled proudly when they saw that. The Buck tribe only produced the best sheep's milk. Amy put down the empty bowl and licked the edge of her mouth with her tongue as she expectantly said, "The sheep's milk is so delicious. The roast mutton must be very scrumptious too." Mag passed the empty bowl back to that maiden herder, and expressed his gratitude before he got up, and said, "I want to go see how they roast the sheep. Do you all want to come with me?" "I want to go," Amy said, lifting Ugly Duckling up. Meow. Ugly Duckling, who had just fallen asleep, narrowed its eyes puzzledly. "I want to go too, big sister Shirley, let's go together." Anna got up and tugged Shirley's hand. This was her first visit to the grassland, so she really wanted to go out and play. It would be great if she could ride a horse too. "All right." Shirley stood up. Mia pulled Elizabeth up and chuckled. "Let's go too. It must be great to play in the grassland." "All right, then we will go right now." Mag nodded and led them out of the tent. Although it was close to the snow mountain here, and temperature was relatively lower, due to the silver blue grass, the temperature was only around 10 degrees Celsius. To Mag and the ladies who came from Chaos City, which was covered with snow, this temperature wasn't a problem at all. Furthermore, the fresh air in the grassland, the snow mountain among the clouds, and the blue sky all made them feel refreshed. Compared to the dark tent with a tinge of rank odor, all of them obviously preferred the outdoors. Mag used body language to express their wishes to watch the roasting process. The herders who got his meaning immediately took them behind the tent where a group of herders were busy butchering, letting blood, and skinning the animal. Meanwhile, there were a few herders setting up a campfire nearby. They were tossing chunky logs into the fire right now. Mag and the ladies' arrival attracted their attention instantly. Many of them stopped working on their tasks, and smiled at Mag and the ladies. Eddie had just finished letting blood from a goat. He put down the knife and turned around when he heard the sounds. He was rather shocked to see Mag and the ladies. "What are you doing here, esteemed guests? Please wait in your tent for a while, and the roast mutton will be ready soon." "It's all right. We're very interested in the cooking of the roast mutton, so we wanted to see how you people roast them." Mag chuckled. His gaze was already attracted by the black goat which already had its throat slit, and was still struggling. Mag had already slaughtered thousands of polar black goats in the god of cookery's space. He was already certain with just one look that the black goat which was dying now was the target that he had been searching hard for. "System, come and look. I have found the polar black goat," Mag smugly said. He had found the polar black goat by chance after traveling far and wide in search of it. This goat appeared even before he had to ask for it. The mission of searching for the polar black goat is completed. Could the host please personally catch a polar black goat before this mission is considered complete, replied the system. Sure, Mag relaxedly answered. Since these herders could catch a polar black goat, naturally they had to know where to find them. Hence, it wasn't difficult to catch one. Mag stepped forward, looked at that black goat, and curiously asked, "Why does this sheep look different from what we saw earlier? Perhaps it's not a species from the grassland." "Good insight, my guest. This black goat is indeed not one of our goats. It only appears on the snow mountain. It can walk easily on the steep slopes, so it's very difficult to catch. However, normal mutton cannot compare to it. It is the holy grail among the sheep and goats," Eddie smilingly said. "We caught this one in a trap we set on the mountain last night. We're preparing to roast it whole for you guests now." This system giving the information about the blue grassland to the host is already considered disclosure of information in violation of regulations. How dare the host bite the hand that feeds him and malign me? This hurts this system's feelings, said the system severely. Cut it out, will you? Mag rolled his eyes. He didn't believe the system's lies. However, since he had already ascertained the polar black goat's position, this mission was already half finished. This goat is so precious, how could we eat it? Mag said to Eddie with embarrassment. The herders were indeed very hospitable, and this made him rather embarrassed. It's our tribe's honor to prepare food for our esteemed guests, Eddie smilingly replied. It had been years since so many guests had come to the grassland, and the Buck tribe was indeed a generous tribe to their guests. They would always serve their guests their best food. Mag smiled. Then, please continue. I am rather interested in roast mutton. May I watch you during the roasting process? Eddie was surprised that Mag was actually interested in roasting mutton, which was such a lowly affair, given his identity and status. However, big shots usually had some weird hobbies, so Eddie didn't pursue it, and simply nodded. Of course, please make yourself comfortable. As the chief of the Buck tribe, Eddie was also the best roasting master in the tribe. A sheep or goat, no matter how thin or fat, would always be perfectly roasted in Eddie's hands. Only the previous chief could match his skills. The goat, which had 3 of its legs tied together, soon stopped struggling. All its blood was let out. Eddie crouched down and sliced open a cut on the goat's leg before puffing up his cheeks and blowing hard. The goat skin puffed up, and Eddie raised his knife. He cut out a complete piece of goat's skin perfectly. Mag watched him do that with admiration. The herder's wisdom was indeed admirable. Of course, this wasn't how Mag skinned the goat. He would hold up a corner of the skin, and use his fat head fish to slice along the skin slowly. He could also cut up a complete piece of goat's skin at an even faster speed. The crux was that he didn't have to use his mouth. The black goat lost his skin, and revealed the flesh within. The flesh was lean and fit, and almost no fat could be seen. Reared goats couldn't compare to it. After using the ice water from the river to clean the flesh, and rubbing a handful of coarse salt and a spice that Mag had never seen before over it, Eddie used 3 pieces of wood to prop the goat up and place it over the prepared grilling rack. Watch it closely. If anything happens to it, you can forget about dinner tonight. Eddie told a young man to watch over the roast goat. All right, it won't go wrong, Alfonso acknowledged with a silly smile. He was taking sneak peeks at Mag enviously while he was turning the grill. He's my grandson, Alfonso. He's still young, but he grew up next to the grilling rack, and his barbecue skills are far better than those of most of the men in the tribe. Eddie introduced Alfonso to Mag with pride. He's a promising young man. Mag smilingly nodded, and took a double look at Alfonso too. This young man did indeed resemble Eddie. His black wavy hair was let loose around his shoulders, and compared to other herders his age, there seemed to be a gleam sparkling in his brown eyes. That made him look a little different. It will take some time to roast the entire goat, so let me roast some mutton for my esteemed guests first. Eddie went to a row of arbuscles at the edge of the clearing with a dagger. Those arbuscles weren't tall, but they had a lot of branches that tangled together. They had a kind of red leaves that resembled maple leaves. Mag remembered it. The sap that Eddie used to rub all over the goat seemed to be mashed up from their leaves, while the 3 pieces of wood that were used as the grilling rack also seemed to be made from this arbuscle's trunk. Eddie used the dagger to chop off a big bunch of branches. He used the dagger to shave the surface of branches clean, and Mag could already smell a faint fragrance. What's that? Mag curiously asked. He was reminded of the rose willow branch immediately. The authentic roasted mutton cubes on rose willow branch was the pinnacle of barbecue meats. The rose willow branch that skewered the meat was a natural spice, and the meat tasted completely different to the chowhounds from the meats that were barbecued with normal bamboo skewers. This is the branch of the baka tree. We, the Buck tribe, always use it to roast meat. The roast mutton tastes even better with it. Eddie washed the sticks that he had cut out in a wooden basin and chuckled. We won't get this taste anywhere else after we leave the grassland. That is indeed a good thing. Mag nodded. Its effect was almost similar to the rose willow branches. Furthermore, smelling the fragrance that was emitted by this branch, he could tell it was indeed a natural spice. The black goat was already placed on the grilling rack completely, so Eddie caught another healthy blue sheep and slaughtered it. After getting the meat from the sheep's thighs and forehead, he chopped it into cubes before skewering it with the baka tree sticks. There were 5 to 6 cubes on each stick, and the cubes were 3 centimeters wide on each side. The burning charcoal was set up in a row in the mud pit. Stones were laid, and the mutton kebabs were laid out one by one. Barbecue in the grassland wasn't very particular. It looked very basic, but the whole process made people feel as wholesome as those meat kebabs. The branches were freshly cut, and were soaked in the water before, so they didn't have to worry that the wood would burn before the mutton kebabs were cooked. The red charcoal gave out quite a good temperature. The marbled mutton sizzled shortly, and gave out a roasted meat aroma. The sheep in the blue grassland didn't have any rank odor. Mag knew that after he drank the sheep's milk. However, placing this mutton, which was almost unprocessed, straight into the fire was indeed a very unsophisticated way of grilling. He didn't dare to be so casual when he roasted the beef kebabs, because one had to be very careful with the control of heat and turning of the mutton kebabs. The chunky mutton would either be uncooked inside or charred outside. Mia and the rest all came forward too. If Mag was watching the grilling with such focus, then it had to be exceptional. Moreover, the aroma of this roast mutton was getting richer and richer. It finally made all of them who had been flying for hours felt hungry finally. It would be best if they could have a few mutton kebabs to suppress their hunger before eating the roasted whole goat. Wow, this roast meat smells great. It must be delicious when it's done. Amy licked her lips as she crouched next to the fire expectantly. Meow Ugly Duckling was already reaching out its paws with anticipation. The mutton cooking on the simple grill made from stone was slowly becoming brown. The fragrance of grilled meat and the sizzling sound of oil sprang forth. The meat, which was only seasoned with nothing but salt, had a really enticing smell that was comparable to Mag's beef kebab. What kind of sheep is this? Mag could not help but ask out of curiosity. This is the blue sheep. Eddie flipped the grilled mutton quickly as he introduced it with a smile. It's a special sheep that can only be found in the blue grassland. Only the sheep that feed on the silver blue grass would not have the strong stench. Blue sheep? Looks like this little sheep is feeling blue, Amy thought to herself as she craned her neck to look around. Let me take a look. There's another blue sheep there. This won't do. Let's catch it and grill it. This is a Shangri-La, Mag commented with a smile. The extremely cold place in the northwestern area was a place filled with snow and ice. It had always been a forgotten place. Even during the Norland Continent race wars, this place was not affected. Wars happened because of territorial disputes, and the northwestern area had vast unclaimed lands, but none of the races actually cared for them. The blue grassland was obviously an accidental phenomenon. However, other than the silver blue grass and sheep in this grassland, there wasn't even a single magic beast. Therefore, for the different races, this piece of land obviously had no value. The roast mutton is ready. Give it a try. Eddie placed a handful of roast mutton kebab on a wooden tray, and passed it to Mag and the rest with a smile. Skewered with carved sticks and cut with a thick rolling knife, this mutton kebab embodied the natural grassland. The reddish-brown meat that was gleaming with oil was emitting a fragrance that would make one salivate. I want a skewer, Amy said with a raise of her hand as she looked at the roast mutton on the tray and swallowed her saliva. It looks yummy. Anna swallowed while also staring at the mutton. Here, have one each. There's definitely enough to go around. Mag gave the skewers out with a smile. This big fat roasted sheep was enough to make 12 skewers. The meat was cut thickly, so each skewer was almost the size of a sheep leg. Be careful, it's hot. Blow on it before eating, Mag reminded Amy and Anna. Amy replied while opening her mouth wide to land a bite on the meat. Amy's eyes lit up instantly. Her little mouth chewed happily as though she was a nibbling rabbit. Her eyes had already formed the shape of a crescent as she smiled in bliss. This made one have an even higher expectation of the roast mutton. Amy would always be very generous with her compliments toward all food. No matter how hard a biscuit could be, she could still nibble on it like a little squirrel, making one believe that it was very delicious. However, when she put on that expression, it would be only because she had tasted something that was truly delicious, and that could be trusted. Mag blew on the first piece of mutton before opening his mouth wide to bite on it. The surface of the mutton was slightly charred. It was very juicy, and did not contain any stench that could be found in mutton. Instead, there was a strong and fresh sheep's milk smell. The savory taste was merely a complement to the delicious roast mutton, giving it another layer of difference. Mag closed his eyes, and could almost see the plump blue sheep taking a stroll among the blue grass, and as the wind blew, it was as though he could smell the fresh grass. The mouthful of mutton tasted better the more he chewed. It was so enjoyable he almost chewed on his tongue. This roast mutton is superb. Mag opened his eyes and gave Eddie a thumbs up. He admitted that this was the best roast mutton he had ever tried. This mutton is delicious, Mia said with her mouth full. As a strong supporter of beef kebab, I have to admit that this roast mutton kebab is pretty good, Babla said with a nod. After that, she turned her head to the side to take a big bite of the mutton and chewed happily. Meanwhile, she started seriously considering if she should switch to team roast mutton. Everyone expressed their heartfelt praises. No one knew that the food in the grassland of the far northwestern area could be so delicious. Ding! The host has made a heartfelt compliment for the food made by others in this world for the first time, and triggered the completion of a hidden mission. The mission's reward is the recipe for mutton kebab. Just then, the system's voice rang in Mag's head. What? Mag was stunned as he looked at the glowing experience bag that appeared in his head. Is this a fake recipe? Mag asked. When would the system be so nice to exchange a recipe for a compliment? Please do not question the system's professionalism, the system said strictly. Praising others is a type of good quality. As a candidate for the god of cookery, you must learn how to be humble. Praising and acknowledging the good of others would allow yourself a larger room for improvement and growth. All right. I'll accept it then. Mag raised his brow. There's no reason to reject a mutton kebab recipe that was given to him. This was a big trump card in the world of roasted food. It was great that he could have the recipe. It's great that all of you like it. Eddie was bursting with joy as he heard the praises from everyone. He became even quicker in flipping the skewers of mutton. One skewer of mutton had around 1/4 kilogram of meat, so just a skewer made everyone feel a little full. However, no one would complain about having a few more skewers of food with such exotic flavor. Everyone gathered by the fire as they warmed themselves, and enjoyed the roast mutton and self-made sheep's milk wine. As the shepherds danced and sang, the atmosphere livened up. Shirley borrowed a horse from the shepherds, and brought Anna with her. Amy went to look for a sheep, and threw Ugly Duckling on it. After that, she climbed up on the sheep, and rode it to chase after Shirley and Anna. Yabimiya and the rest had gone elsewhere to take a stroll and play around. It was rare to have such good weather and environment, and the casual chatting and laughter made everyone increasingly familiar with each other. Mag did not tag along. Instead, he picked up a random piece of dry wood, and sat by the fire to watch Eddie and Alfonso roast the goat. "Grandpa, have you gone to the south when you were young?" Mag asked casually as he watched Eddie turn the goat. "Yes. When I was young, I went out to explore for a few decades. The furthest I've been was to Chaos City. I stayed there for 3 years, and started missing home," so I came back. Eddie nodded. The corners of his mouth rose unconsciously as he reminisced about the past. Alfonso sized Mag up carefully with a little anticipation. His grandpa had taught him the common tongue before. Although he was not fluent in it, he could understand Mag. He loved to hear everything about the grassland, and also hoped that one day, he could leave the grassland to take a look at the south just like his grandpa. Chapter 1696 Whole Roasted Goat. Alfonso listened silently by the side while adding charcoal to the fire occasionally. Most of the time, he would be looking at Mag with a gleam in his eyes. The world outside, as described by this distinguished guest, was way bigger and more exciting than the world his grandfather told him about. There were giant dragons flying in the sky, tree spirits who were as tall as a hill, dwarves who were good at construction and wielding, not forgetting the big cities that were built on flat land. After decades, the world outside has changed completely, but the shepherds in the grassland haven't. We are still leading our slow and simple life. It's really a pity for the young people in our tribe. They have no other skill than herding, so they can't even leave the grassland, Eddie lamented. The people outside are envious that you are leading a carefree life, but you're envious of the bustling world out there. In these times, I wouldn't be sure which is better. Mag looked past the fire to the youngsters playing wrestling nearby. They were smiling contentedly, and such a simple life was not easy to find outside. Eddie looked at Mag in a little shock. He thought for a while, and then nodded his head as he said, "I was being greedy." Mag smiled. He didn't reply to Eddie. He looked with a smile at Alfonso as he could feel his gaze, and asked, "Do you want to go out to see the world?" Alfonso was stunned. He stood up hurriedly and nodded while replying in the common tongue, "Yes." Mag watched his fidgety hands and smiled. He took out his money bag and took out 10 dragon coins and 10 gold coins. After that, he took out a piece of paper and pen, which he always had on him, and wrote an address down. He passed the paper to Alfonso, and said, "If you still want to go out to see the world by the time you can converse fluently with your grandfather in the common tongue, look for me at this address." Alfonso became increasingly agitated. His hands, which were holding the dragon coins, were shaking as he bowed deeply, and gratefully said, Thank you. This won't do. Sir, that's a lot of money. It's too much for Alfonso to bear. Eddie quickly stood up as he tried to return Mag the money. It's only normal for young people to want to go out to see the world, just like how you walked out of the grassland in the past. Mag pressed Eddie's hand down gently, and looked at Alfonso with a smile as he said, "Besides, for the young people from the grassland to survive well outside, you do not necessarily need to know how to fight and kill. Times have changed. As long as he can learn your skills for the roast mutton, I will arrange things for him the moment he comes to Chaos City." Eddie looked at Alfonso's yearning gaze, and felt his heart soften. How could he possibly not know what was on his grandson's mind? The latter had attempted to leave the house countless times ever since he was young, just like when Eddie was young. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Eddie bowed deeply to Mag. "You're welcome. Take it as my way of repaying you for the whole roasted goat." Mag looked at the whole roasted goat on the grill that had already turned golden brown. It was even more fragrant compared to the roast mutton before. It was a little different from the smell of the blue sheep. This roasted goat's fragrance had more layers to it, and they lingered in the air for a very long time. Eddie turned the roasted goat, and looked up at Mag as he said, "Sir, this whole roasted goat is almost done. Do you want to have it now?" "Of course, that's the best time to have the roasted goat." Mag nodded with a smile. He stood up and called everyone back for the roasted goat. "That sheep is too lazy, just like Ugly Duckling. It couldn't even keep up with Big Sister Anna," Amy complained as she rode the sheep back. Meow! Both the sheep and Ugly Duckling let out an innocent cry. Mag looked at the plump and tame sheep, and was shocked at how Amy did that. "Horse riding is so fun." Anna was full of smiles when Shirley carried her off the horse. Mia and the rest came back while laughing and chatting. Angela and Jane appeared way closer to the rest, and they were also smiling brightly. Everyone appeared to be in harmony. Smells great. Amy jumped off the sheep's back, and looked at the roasted goat that was glistening with oil. She swallowed her saliva, and said, "Roasting the goat like that is so delectable, detestable. But I love it. Wash your hands first, and we can start eating." Mag received a wooden basin filled with warm water from one of the shepherd ladies, and called Amy over to wash her hands. After everyone had washed their hands, Eddie gave out a paring knife to each person, as the shepherds always just sliced a piece off the roasted goat straight away. That was how they ate a whole roasted goat in the grassland. However, the roasted goat had just been cooked, so it might be a little difficult for the children and ladies to do that. Mag brought his own knife along. He took out fathead fish, and cut out a piece of mutton for everyone, together with the bones so that it would be more convenient for everyone to hold and eat the mutton. "Father, can I have the leg?" Amy asked as she stared at one of the goat's legs. "Of course." With a single chop, Mag cut out a leg from the goat, and passed it to Amy. The latter was still growing, so she could eat as much as 2 to 3 adults. "Thank you." Amy received the goat's leg, and started biting into it happily. After that, Mag cut out around a kilogram's worth of mutton, and placed it on his plate. He had previously paid for the whole roasted goat with 11,000 copper coins, so he did not feel guilty cutting the goat up. Eddie watched on in shock. That was very different from the way the locals ate a whole roasted goat. However, he did not probe. This might be the habit of their distinguished guests. Of course, what shocked him the most was Mag's cutting skills. The pair of hands did not look like they did menial chores, but they could actually wield such a large and thick knife so skillfully. That was something Eddie, as a person who had spent most of his life with goats, hadn't seen before. Mag held up a piece of mutton with the skin, meat, and bone with his fingers. The enticing smell wafted over together with the steam. The oil on the golden brown skin gleamed under the sunlight. The mutton had already turned brown, and the smell of the baka leaves was infused within. Without any hesitation, Mag bit into the meat. Crunch! The slightly charred skin made a crunching sound as he chewed, and the delicious scent of the charred skin filled his mouth. The fire had been controlled very well, and that gave the mutton its charming texture and taste. It was comparable to the duck skin of the Peking duck. Beneath the slightly charred skin, the goat was exceptionally tender. The layer of fat under the skin protected the meat well, and leveled it up in terms of texture. The tenderness of the chivan was even better than the mutton kebab just now. Besides, it even had a faint scent of its own other than the fresh smell of the baka leaves, making the meat smell better the more it was chewed. Mag's taste buds had already surrendered to the beautiful taste as he could not help but immerse himself in the joy of eating. Chapter 1697 I think. We are about to have a baby. Eddie smiled proudly. Even the distinguished guests from afar would fall in love with his whole roasted goat. Remember to master your grandfather's skills before coming over. When you arrive at Chaos City, I'll arrange work for you, Mag told Alfonso seriously after finishing a few kilograms of chivan once he put his plate down. It was apparent that the praise could no longer trigger a whole roasted goat recipe reward from the system. It would be such a pity if this delicacy remained only in the blue grassland. Therefore, Mag made plans to recruit Alfonso. Alfonso nodded seriously. The delicious whole roasted goat was an added bonus to Mag and the rest's trip to the grassland. Mag expressed his gratitude to Eddie and the other shepherds once again. He left 2 bags of salt, something that was hard to come by in the grassland, and departed with the others. I'm so full. Would the last goat leg still taste good when we get back? Amy asked Mag worriedly as she lazed comfortably in his embrace. We can just roast it for a while again when we get back. There shouldn't be too much of a difference. Mag shook his head with a smile. The little fellow was so fond of the whole roasted goat that she insisted on bringing the remaining goat leg back. Its taste after re-roasting would definitely not be as good as when it was freshly roasted, but the difference would not be too big. That's great. Amy smiled broadly. She turned to look out, and asked, "Where are we going now? Are we going back already? Aren't we skiing?" "Yes. We are going skiing right now, and while we're at it, we'll catch a black goat to take home so I can make some chiffon soup for everyone." Mag nodded with a smile, and glanced at the blue sheep tied to the back of the eagle. Those were forcefully given them by Eddie, and it would also not be a bad idea to use those for roast mutton. "Are we skiing down from that tall snowy mountain?" Anna said in a slightly frightened tone as she pointed to the snowy mountain that was approaching in their eyes. "Not this one. Let's catch the goat first, and take a look behind this snowy mountain. There might be places that are more suitable." Mag shook his head. The face of the mountain turned toward the grassland was very steep, and half of the snow on the mountain had already melted to reveal the black granite underneath that formed an almost 90-degree drop. Before they left, Mag asked Eddie where the latter caught the black goat, and found out that it was at this cliff where the herdsman caught it in a trap. Black goats were very alert, and they could only catch around 1 to 2 a year. Therefore, Mag was very lucky to have coincidentally come on the day they caught the black goat. Mag steered the eagle close to the cliff. Its huge wings dispersed the surrounding clouds to reveal the black granite rocks in front of everyone. "Look, there really is a goat flying at the cliff!" Mia suddenly exclaimed as she pointed diagonally upwards. Everyone looked in the direction she pointed, and saw a black goat jumping as it climbed up the steep cliff. It propelled itself up by pushing against the cracks and small protruding rocks on the cliff, making it look like it was flying up the cliff. "That's it!" Mag's eyes lit up. He steered the eagle upwards while saying to Babla, "Babla, use your spatial magic to trap it and bring it to the eagle's back." "All right." Babla raised her hand, and the black goat, which was jumping up the cliff, suddenly froze in mid-air. It kicked its limbs helplessly in the air before it fell right onto the eagle's back. "Beautiful." Mag glanced at the black goat, which was tied together with the 2 blue sheep, and smiled. "Ding! Congratulations for completing the mission of capturing the black goat. You have received the right to use the black goat as an ingredient." The system's voice sounded. "Let's go skiing." Mag steered the eagle to stop at the peak of the snowy mountain. On the other side of the mountain, there was a winding snowy slope, and in the distance, there were more snowy mountains. "I'll take you all there." Elizabeth waved her hand, and a giant ice sledge appeared on the ground. "Wow, this snow sledge looks awesome. It looks just like a crystal." Amy was the first to jump down. Ugly Duckling followed suit. However, because the surface was too slippery, it face-planted and slid all the way to Amy's feet. Everyone boarded the snow sledge subsequently. Mag got the eagle to follow behind before he jumped in as well. "Hold on tight," Elizabeth reminded them. She leaned forward, and the stationary sledge glided down immediately at an increasing speed. "Ah!" Screams echoed throughout the mountain range. "Lulu, why are you back so early today?" Zixi asked Lulu, who just returned to the magic potion shop, as she passed him a warm towel. Lulu wiped his coal-covered face with the warm towel, and then wiped his hands. He looked at Zixi, and replied, "I finished my work early today, so I'm back early. Give me a moment. I'll make you some food." Zixi took the towel from Lulu, and turned to walk into the kitchen. "Hang on, Zixi, actually, Lulu called out to Zixi as he rummaged through his breast pocket. Zixi turned around to look at him in bewilderment. "Found it." Lulu pulled his hand out in a fist, and put it in front of Zixi before opening his hand. There was an exquisite silver ring in the middle of his palm. It was a very thin ring with an amber gemstone. In the amber, there was a very small branch which looked just like a miniature tree. "This is..." Zixi's eyes lit up. She looked at the ring as she exclaimed in surprise, "For me? Today is your birthday. This time, I can finally spend it properly with you." Lulu looked at her with a gentle gaze. He carefully held her hand, and put the ring on her finger. It fitted perfectly. The ring looked very exquisite and cute on Zixie's long, slender finger. Zixie looked at the ring on her finger. Even the edges were buffed until they shone. His hands were so large and rough, it had to have been very difficult to make such an exquisite ring. On top of that, how much time had he spent off his busy working hours to make it? Thinking of all those made Zixie feel a tinge of sourness in her nose. Her eyes reddened gradually as she looked up to meet Lulu's gentle gaze. She could not help but smile, and pounded lightly on his chest as she complained, "Stupid. I'll be happy as long as you're with me." Lulu scratched his head with a foolish smile. His wife looked so beautiful even when she was angry. "Actually, I have something to tell you as well." Zixie took a step closer, and put her hand on her stomach. She looked down with a blush as she said, "I think, we are about to have a baby." "That's great." Lulu opened his arms wide and gave Zixie a hug. However, he quickly let her go again for fear that his clumsy limbs would hurt Zixie and the baby inside. He simply looked at Zixie as he smiled foolishly like a child, not knowing where to put his hands. "Feel it." Zixie grabbed his large hand with a smile, and placed it gently on her stomach. Although there was still no baby bump, both of them were very careful, as though they were handling something very precious. "Let me listen. I want to see if our baby has anything it wants to tell us." Lulu knelt down and placed his ear on Zixie's stomach as he listened seriously with his eyes closed. Zixie caressed Lulu's head gently as she smiled blissfully. Perhaps only they knew how difficult it was for this child to come by and what was its significance to them. They once thought that they would not be able to have children forever, that dryads had cut off their lineage for good. Isn't Boss Mag a little too much? In the past, when he took a break, at least the designated hot pot area would still be in operation. Now we can't even have hot pot. Hot pot is fine. Mana Hot Pot restaurant just up in front is opened by the chef of Boss Mag's designated hot pot area. Although the ingredients are a little lacking compared to Mamie restaurants, they each have their strengths and weaknesses. Most importantly, it's cheap there. It's almost a tenth of the price at Mamie restaurant. Alright. I guess I can settle for second best and try Mana Hot Pot restaurant today. Outside the restaurant, some excited customers who saw the notice could not help but grumble before proceeding to Mana Hot Pot restaurant for hot pot. No one knew that Mag and the others had already returned from their break, and were having a barbecue banquet. The 2 sheep and the goat they'd brought back from the blue grassland were the main characters of tonight's banquet. The blue sheep were made into roast mutton, and Mag even brought back the baka tree branches to make wooden skewers. As it was his first time roasting mutton, he wasn't very confident, so he cut the mutton up into small pieces similar to the beef kebab. That way, it would be easier for him to control the temperature of the fire. As for that black goat, Amy had tamed it to become her ride on the way back. When it was finally time to slaughter the goat at night when they returned, she was in a dilemma. "Blackie, although we had a lot of fun in the afternoon, and you're also smarter than Ugly Duckling, it's nighttime now, and we are all very hungry, so we have no choice but to eat you up." Amy patted the black goat's head, and comforted it, "Don't be upset. I will enjoy you thoroughly." The black goat licked Amy's hand before walking towards Mag with resolution. "The mutton soup is cooking in the pot. The grill at home is a little small, so we can't make a whole roasted goat. We can only roast half the goat, and the grilling method would be a little different from what we had in the grassland today. I'll try the taste after a while." Mag placed the grill in the middle of the restaurant and shifted the tables and chairs aside. He combined 3 long tables to form a very long table. Grilling alone in the kitchen would make one feel like a chef instead of someone at a barbecue party. Besides, since it was a barbecue, the smoke and atmosphere had to be there. If the food were cooked and served on the table, it wouldn't be the same. It was all about watching the meat cook slowly on the grill. Even though mutton was the star for today, they couldn't simply just have mutton. Pig's eyes, beef, and the rest were all available to complement the mutton. Although Irina missed the outing, she did not give the barbecue a miss. She was eating fruits as she listened to Amy talk about the fun and interesting things that had happened during the trip, and they would laugh together at the funny moments. The charcoal in the grill was already red. Mag glazed the grill with a layer of oil, and started to lay the mutton on top. Sizzle. When the mutton got in contact with the hot grill, it started smoking immediately, and the fragrance of the meat started wafting out as well. Compared to the all-natural way of eating with salt as the only seasoning, Mag added chili powder and cumin. That gave the gentle scent of the mutton a sharp and irresistible aroma, as though he had given it a soul. The others, who were still chatting, were all attracted by the smell of the mutton on the grill. Even though they had just had mutton kebab in the afternoon, the smell of Mag's mutton kebab assailed their noses and made them salivate. The process of watching the mutton on the grill change was an enjoyable yet torturous experience. All right. Try my first ever roasted mutton. Mag bunched up the skewers of roasted mutton on the grill, and split them up into 3 long trays before passing them to Mia, who was already waiting at the side. It looks awesome. Mia smiled as she placed the 3 trays on the table. That way, everyone did not have to get out of their seats to take the food. Let me try. Amy already grabbed a skewer of roasted mutton impatiently, and put it straight into her mouth after just blowing a few times at it. Compared to Shepard's boorish way of eating, Mag's roasted mutton had much smaller portions, and since he only used the meat, it was more convenient to eat as there weren't any bones. Father's roasted sheep is very delicious too. Amy chewed on the mutton while getting another skewer for Irina, who was sitting beside her. Big sister Irina, try it. It's really super good. I'll give it a try. Irina took the skewer and looked at it for a while. Its color on the surface was slightly charred and yellowish, and its smell was very enticing because of the spices. She took her first bite. This taste. The mutton had a slightly charred smell, but it was not at all hard. The spices teased her taste buds first, and when she bit into the mutton, the freshness of the meat suddenly attacked her mouth. That was the taste of the grassland. The image of the grassland Amy described to her just now, the blue grassland that was almost the same color as the sky, suddenly rushed into her mind. The blue sheep gathered in groups as they grazed lazily on the grassland. What a beautiful scene! Irina could not help but smile. The spices gave the fresh mutton a lot more layers in terms of taste, and that satisfied her greedy taste buds to the maximum. Other than cumin and chili powder, there was also a light freshness infused that gave off the element of the grassland. If one would say that the beef was outstanding, this mutton kebab would then be enough to be on the same level. She thought that maybe, she might like mutton a little more. But Uncle Mag is so impressive. He learned it only after watching that Grandpa do it once, and even invented a new roasting method. Anna admired Mag. She felt that she was very stupid for not being able to learn how to make the beef kebab yet. Anna, you're still young. When you grow a little older, it would be easier for you to operate the kitchenware, and that's when you'll start picking things up quickly, Mag told Anna with a smile. She was a very hard-working young fellow and a pretty fast learner. The only downside was that because she was too young, she would have to stand on a little stool to reach the grill, not to mention grabbing many bamboo skewers in one go with her little hands. I have officially decided that from today onwards, I am going to split half my love for beef kebab to mutton kebab, Babla announced. After that, she took a bite of the mutton, and immersed herself in the joy of chewing. Rather positive feedback. Mag looked at the ladies who were enjoying their roasted mutton, and also tried a skewer himself. His control over the fire was a lot worse compared to Eddie's. After all, it was his first time roasting mutton, and it was insufficient to just follow his experience with beef kebabs. The surface of the mutton became too hard, and the meat was rather dry. However, the fresh and tender meat concealed the flaw in his skills, and cumin and chili powder were also miracle tools to cheat one's taste buds with the flavor so that the problem with fire control could be overlooked. Salt alone is the best way to do it indeed. The more Mag thought about it, the more he could understand the mastery in Eddie's simple roasting techniques. He had already received the recipe for the mutton kebab, and it seemed like he would have to train himself well in the test field for the god of cookery tonight. However, for someone with extreme tastes, cumin and chili powder would be the soul of all food. The freshness of original food was no longer able to satisfy his experienced tongue. Mag only gave himself 4 points for this set of roasted mutton. It was far from passing in a huge gap to perfection. "Mia, pour me a glass of beer," Mag told Mia, who was eating, as he placed the beef on the grill. "How can you leave out beer at a barbecue?" "Okay." Mia got up, and smilingly asked the others, "What drinks do all of you like?" "I would like some beer too." "The extra cold kind," Irina said with a nod. "I want bee juice." Bablam at Mag's gaze and changed her order to juice obediently. She snorted softly, and indignantly said, "I'll be of age in half a month." "Then wait for half a month," Mag replied calmly. "No alcohol for those underage." That was the limit. The fire and smoke from the barbecue and everyone's laughter and chatting made the entire restaurant extra warm. Elizabeth took a sip of red wine, and smiled when she saw everyone smiling. How interesting! She'd never thought that there would be a place that could make her lower her guard and smile happily with others after her mother passed away. She found her younger sister, and also a group of friends. To her, that used to be wishful thinking, but now it was the people by her side. No one here cared about who was sitting on that ice throne. That was not even as important as what was for breakfast tomorrow. After a few rounds of barbecue, the pile of food was cleared, and so was the large barrel of alcohol at the side. Because that roasted half-goat did not taste authentic enough, Mag gave it up straight away. Such things could not be learned by watching indeed. Gina performed a merfolk dance for everyone, and compared to her sweet voice, her rather stiff moves made her appear a little cute and clumsy, making everyone even more enthusiastic. Everyone danced and sang, and that was when many hidden talents were uncovered to everyone's surprise. "All right. We've finished the barbecue today." Mag placed his empty glass down with a smile, and told everyone, "But, the highlight of the show is at the back. Let me introduce everyone to the new product that we'll be launching tomorrow, mutton soup." "New product?" Everyone looked at Mag in shock. They did hear Mag mention making mutton soup, but because they were too focused on the roast mutton, they did not really care about it. Now, it seemed that the mutton soup was the one that Mag really cared about. "Mia, give me a hand." Mag walked into the kitchen. The moment they entered the kitchen, they were greeted by a rich smell of mutton. Perhaps it was because they'd had the various spicy barbecue foods, but this waft of fragrance was rather refreshing. "Smells great. Is this the smell of the mutton soup?" Mia's eyes lit up the moment she walked through the door. She looked at the huge pot on the stove in surprise. "Set up 13 soup bowls. I'll mix the dipping sauce," Mag told Mia before he went to take a stack of small dishes. Mutton soup had to go with the spicy powder dip. It was made up of dried chili, soybeans, peanuts, star anise, bay leaves, and other spices stir-fried with salt. After that, the salt would be sieved out, and the spices would be crushed with a cleaver. Then, cooked sesame in a ladle of the salt used previously would be added again and mixed together to make a perfect Szechuan-style spicy powder dip. Mia had already finished setting up the bowls. Mag switched the stove off and opened the lid. Steam started rising, making the kitchen look magical. For the mutton soup to be good, it had to be simmered over a small flame for an entire night. Mag did not have much time, so he used a pressure cooker to decrease the cooking time. The thick soup was milky white, and just the smell alone was rich and refreshing. There wasn't a hint of gamey mutton smell. Looks not bad. Mag smiled. He sliced the cooked mutton at the side into thin slices before scalding it in a pot of boiling water. After that, he placed the meat into the bowls, and poured the milky white mutton soup in. Lastly, he added some coriander, and a bowl of fragrant piping hot mutton soup was done. The fresh green coriander floating on the milky white milk, in addition to the mutton that took up half the bowl, looked and smelled absolutely delicious. All right, bring it out. Mag brought out 2 trays and placed 8 bowls of mutton soup on them before bringing the soup out of the kitchen. Mia followed behind with the remaining bowls. Everyone could not sit still as they waited impatiently. When they saw Mag and Mia exit the kitchen with the bowls of piping hot soup, their eyes lit up. The milky white mutton soup looked very rich. The fragrant smell of meat and coriander wafted over as the steam rose, making everyone, who just had barbecue and beer, salivate. Father, do I pour the seasoning in this small dish into the soup? Amy asked as she pointed to the seasoning in front of her. No, this is for you to dip the mutton in. Mag sat down, picked up a piece of mutton, and dipped it in the seasoning. The mutton was immediately covered with sesame, crushed peanuts, and chili powder. The plain-looking mutton suddenly came alive. Mag put the mutton into his mouth. The taste of the seasoning erupted in his mouth first, waking his taste buds up. The fragrance of the peanut and soybean, coupled with the spiciness from the dried chili and other spices, already filled his mouth before he even started chewing. The mutton was thin and soft, yet it wasn't soggy. The fresh soup would seep out of the meat when it was chewed, and there would be an amazing collision of taste between the mutton and the seasoning. The fresh mutton made the flavors of the seasoning even richer. This taste came even stronger, unlike the richness of braised meat. The crushed peanut and the soft mutton might seem like an odd combination, but one would know how compatible the two were after trying it. Even Mag, who had always been very mindful of dining etiquette, could not help but make chewing noises. This mutton is superb. Mag raised his brows unknowingly. The mutton in the mutton soup had to go with the dry seasoning indeed. Of course, this dry seasoning was also undeniably good. After swallowing that piece of mutton, the spiciness lingered in his mouth. This was the moment to drink a spoonful of milky white mutton soup, and that made him feel as though he had transcended. The mutton soup was made with the sheep's bones. The bone marrow and collagen within the bones had all fused into the soup, giving it a smooth texture and fresh taste, and making it fragrant and not greasy, and thick and not sticky. The soup made its round in the mouth and calmed the taste buds before sliding down into the stomach to release a surge of warmth upwards and to the entire body. Damn, Mag smiled. This bowl of mutton soup had made his days and nights of hard work worth it. This soup is delicious. Amy, who was at the side, was already gulping the soup down right from the bowl. Having the mutton alone is a little too plain, but after dipping it in the dry seasoning, it's a totally different experience. It's so delicious I almost bit my tongue. How amazing! Camilla exclaimed. Yes. This dry seasoning is good. Although it's a little spicy, it's really fragrant. Mia nodded in agreement. After finishing the barbecue, the bowl of mutton soup was a good end to the banquet. Babla, please stay for a while. I have something to ask you. Irina called Babla back. Babla looked at Irina with bewilderment, but she still stood still obediently. In the past, she'd never had an idol, but she did after meeting Irina. She fully admired the other party for all her legendary stories, and was even willing to become Irina's little fangirl. I heard that you've repaired an ancient spell formation to teleport yourself to this world, Irina asked in a lowered voice after pulling Babla to a corner. That's true. Babla nodded her head in despair. Don't mention that darn spell formation anymore. If it were not for that darn spell formation, she would still have been an honorable princess at the Moon Nation. However, if it were not for that darn spell formation, she would not have arrived in this world, and she would not have tasted so many delicacies or met such good friends. Compared to the Moon Nation, the Norland continent was really a vast area of land. It was just a pity she did not have the opportunity to travel further. In that case, can you understand this spell formation? Irina opened her hands to reveal in her palm a photo stone, which had the corner of the spell formation. Babla went forward and looked at it seriously. She nodded, and said, "This spell formation seems to be from a very ancient era, but it seems to be from the same period as the one that I repaired previously because it has many of the same inscriptions. I can understand some of it." Really? Irina looked at Babla in shock. Some of the best spell formation masters had seen this photo stone today, but Babla was the only one who said she could understand some of it. Yes. I've read a lot in order to repair that spell formation. There is plenty of ancient literature in the Moon Nation library. That includes specific texts on ancient spell formations. However, this spell formation seems rather complicated. I'm not certain that I can understand it all. Babla nodded. She was a little happy that she could display some of her capabilities in front of her idol. All right. You don't have to work tomorrow. Follow me somewhere, Irina said with satisfaction as she kept the photo stone. Hey! Babla was stunned. She looked at Mag instinctively. But, it's all right. I have the final say, Irina said. She could tell what Babla was worried about. All right. Babla smiled immediately. True, Irina is a superb 10th tier powerhouse and also the elf princess. Boss couldn't possibly stop her. Go ahead. Angela is going to start work officially tomorrow, and Shirley's back too. There's no problem. Indeed, when Mag heard that, all he did was glance at her and nodded with consent. I'm not fired, right? Babla asked with a frown. Based on what Mag meant, it felt as though she was a tool that could be easily replaced. That made her feel danger since she had always thought of herself as the pillar of support for the restaurant. Of course not. You are a very important employee, Mag said with a smile. He didn't know why this lady would suddenly feel as though she was dispensable. She alone was as good as 10 people. That's great. Babla smiled. Indeed, the restaurant couldn't dismiss her. Everyone bade their farewell. After playing the entire day and eating so many delicacies, everyone was tired, so they quickly went back to wash up and turn in. Gina bade Mag and everyone else good night, and went upstairs to sleep. Amy had already fallen asleep on the table with Ugly Duckling in her arms. Little fellow. Mag smiled and carried Amy in one arm while picking Ugly Duckling up with the other. While walking upstairs, he softly asked, "How's the situation over there?" No one could understand the ancient spell formation. There's no progress on the repair work at all. Irina shook her head. I didn't expect that we would have to rely on an employee from my restaurant to finally solve this. Mamie restaurant is full of talents, Mag commented.